Chapter 2141. An old acquaintance visits. 1. When Leng Ruoxue heard the voice, she looked up and saw Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan standing not too far away. Ning Haolan's handsome face had a faint smile on it, and the person who had spoken with a bitter voice and put on the expression of a bitter wife was Cheng Xian. Cheng Xian, Ning Haolan, why are you guys here? Leng Ruoxue asked in surprise. We heard that you came to Yu City, so we came to find you. Ning Haolan explained with a smile. I see. Leng Ruoxue nodded and thought to herself. These two must have gone to the land of demons and met the first elder. Otherwise, they wouldn't know that I'm here. However, before Leng Ruoxue could continue, she heard a threatening voice ringing in her ears. If you're still trying to catch me, I'll scratch you. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue turned towards the source of the voice and saw the demon staring at Song. The two of them were in a stalemate. One wanted to stay in Leng Ruoxue's arms, while the other was trying hard to get a certain beast out of Leng Ruoxue's arms. The certain beast flashed its sharp little claws threateningly. Seeing this scene, everyone was helpless. Leng Ruoxue sighed and threw Song into the arms of the evildoer. You two should bond well. Don't fight. With Leng Ruoxue's words, the two cockfight-like guys immediately became listless. The evildoer acted as if there was something dirty in his arms, and quickly threw Song away from Leng Ruoxue's arms. Instantly, a shooting star flew across the sky and disappeared. The demon still cast Song aside. This scene stunned everyone for a long time before they recovered. But after they recovered, they didn't know how to evaluate this matter. Only the evil man would dare to do such a thing to Song. Uncle Long and the others thought. However, Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan, who did not know the truth, looked at evildoer worriedly. Cheng Xian even patted evildoer's shoulder sympathetically and reminded him. Sai, you're out of luck. Hurry up and run. Run away? Oh. It's time to run. The demon nodded in agreement. Then he pulled Shui and disappeared. Damn it, what kind of rotten idea did you come up with? Seeing that Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer had teleported away, the master of the Ning family was so angry that he kicked Cheng Xian's butt and shouted. Uncle Long and Audiobook also looked at Cheng Xian with disapproval. Their expressions were not friendly. How did I come up with a bad idea? I'm just thinking about his life. Cheng Xian covered his butt with one hand and said in an aggrieved manner. It's a bad idea. Then he stepped on Cheng Xian's shoulder and chased after Leng Ruoxue. The other beasts who had followed Leng Ruoxue out of the bracelet did the same. They all used Cheng Xian as a stepping stone and chased after Leng Ruoxue one by one. Ai. Uncle Long sighed and stared deeply at Cheng Xian for a long time. When Cheng Xian's hair stood on end from his stare, his figure flickered and he also teleported away. Audiobook and the master of the Ning family followed. Both of them glared at Cheng Xian with an unpleasant expression before disappearing. For a moment, only Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan were left in the courtyard, still confused by the situation. The judges have left? Cheng Xian was stunned and asked in a daze. Ai. Let's go too. Ning Haolan sighed helplessly. Sometimes, this good friend of his was really hopelessly stupid. This was great. He had offended quite a few people in Beastie. This time he would probably be the one to suffer. Even though he had good intentions, it was a pity that the other party didn't seem to need it at all. She even took the opportunity to leave with Leng Ruoxue and spend some alone time with her. With that, Ning Haolan pulled the still dumbfounded Cheng Xian and left the courtyard. On the way, Cheng Xian even asked in a silly manner, Haolan, where are we going? Oh, go to the land of demons. You can go wherever you want. Ning Haolan shot a glance at Cheng Xian as he spoke indifferently. I'll go with you, Cheng Xian quickly said. By the time the two of them arrived at the land of demons, Leng Ruoxue and the rest were already seated in the garden. They had also finished exchanging pleasantries with the first elder and the others. Looking at their travel-worn bodies, the first elder smiled and said, Hee hee. Of all these people, you guys are the slowest to return. That. We encountered some accidents. Cheng Xian said, a little embarrassed. Yup. It's a big surprise. Ning Haolan's face darkened. What's wrong? Don't tell me you've been entangled by a woman? First elder made a nosy guess when he saw Ning Haolan's furious expression. Ning Haolan's face darkened even more at his words. Looks like I'm right. I just don't know which one of you is the rotten peach blossom. The Grand Elder asked with great interest. The others also turned to look at Ning Haolan and Cheng Xian, their faces full of curiosity. Of course it's his. The two of them said in unison. The crowd was stunned, and the curiosity on their faces intensified. It seemed like there was more to this. Don't blame them for being so nosy. The atmosphere had been too tense previously, especially when First Elder and the rest heard that Lung Ruoxue was injured. They were extremely worried. Now that they finally had something to do to pass the time, they naturally wouldn't want to let it go. This could be considered a form of relaxation. He was the one who provoked them. Ning Haolan said through gritted teeth. How can you blame me? I didn't seduce her. Cheng Xian felt wronged. Then why would she follow you? Ning Haolan roared in anger. That. Cheng Xian was at a loss for words. In fact, he didn't know what to say. What's going on? Lung Ruoxue glanced at the two of them and asked. Shui, you have to uphold justice for me. It's really not my fault. The moment Cheng Xian heard Lung Ruoxue's question, he seemed to feel even more aggrieved. Then, he told everyone what had happened. As it turned out, on their way back to the demonic land, Cheng Xian was hungry and wanted to eat something, so he went hunting. However, he did not expect that he would fall for the same prey as a certain woman, and the two of them had a small dispute. In the end, Cheng Xian got his hands on the prey, and the woman treated him as her prey, chasing after him all the way. Then she saw Ning Haolan, planning to kill two birds with one stone and take down both of them. Just like that, the two of them were entangled by this love-struck woman. In the end, Cheng Xian even rejoiced and said, It's a good thing we ran away quickly. Otherwise, we would have been captured by her. That woman is really a robber. You're snatching things from a woman, and you still have the nerve to say that? If you had just given the prey to that woman, we might not have been caught. Ning Haolan said angrily after hearing Cheng Xuan's endless words. On what basis? I was the one who caught the prey first. Cheng Xian was unhappy when he heard this. Although he always thought that he had a tender heart for women, he never had any thoughts of being tender to women when it came to food. Chapter 2142. An old acquaintance visits, too. Besides, even if I give the prey to that woman, how do you know she won't bother us? Cheng Xian said, unconvinced. I agree with Cheng Xian's words. With your looks and temperament, it's impossible for you two not to be entangled by some love-struck woman. However, didn't she fail to catch up to you? So you guys shouldn't have anything to worry about. Lung Ruoxue smiled as she tried to calm the infuriated Ning Haolan. As for Cheng Xian, that heartless fellow, he didn't take this matter to heart at all. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's comforting words, Ning Haolan had to swallow his anger. Otherwise, old grandmadam would be the first to come after him. However, he still secretly glared at Cheng Xian, and then went to find a place to rest. Lung Ruoxue and the rest also had a good rest for a few days. A few days later, there were guests at the door. Lung Ruoxue was surprised for a long time when she heard that Meng Bao had come to visit. Moreover, they had not contacted each other since the elite competition. So, she really couldn't figure out how Meng Bao had found his way here. She really did not remember telling Meng Bao that she lived here. But then she thought about it. Even if she didn't tell Meng Bao, with the current reputation of the land of evil demons, it shouldn't be difficult for him to find this place, right? With this thought in mind, Lung Ruoxue went out to welcome Meng Bao. Aha! Lung Ruoxue, I'm here to see you. Lung Ruoxue heard Meng Bao's loud voice before she even entered the garden. Thank you, he said. Lung Ruoxue's face was filled with black lines as she sighed helplessly. This guy was still so forthright. Lung Ruoxue, you've made this place look pretty good. Meng Bao praised him. He felt that his eyes were not enough to look at him anymore. He thought to himself, should I also build a mountain and occupy it as a king? Thank you, he said. Lung Ruoxue thanked him once again because she really didn't know how to respond to Meng Bao's words. In fact, she really wanted to ask him why he was here this time. However, he had already said that he was here to see her. So it wasn't appropriate for her to take the initiative to ask. Lung Ruoxue, are you still with that pretty boy? Suddenly, Meng Bao scuttled to Lung Ruoxue's side and whispered into her ear. However, her voice was not soft, so the crowd could not pretend that they did not hear her. Suddenly, they all had a strange look on their faces, and looked at Meng Bao with even more curiosity. Of course, we're together. Lung Ruoxue was confused. What did this guy mean? Could it be that she had taken a fancy to the demon, and wanted them to separate? However, she didn't think that the evildoer would be this tomboy's type. At the thought of this, she glanced at the corner silently, because the evildoer was hiding in the corner and eavesdropping. Upon hearing this, Meng Bao was disappointed. Then he heard Meng Bao say, "What's so good about that pretty boy? He can't even lift his arms. I don't think he can last more than 3 days in bed." When everyone heard this, they fell silent. On the other hand, Lung Ruoxue's face was slightly red and filled with embarrassment. This guy really dared to say anything. In fact, she really wanted to ask Meng Bao, "How do you know that the demon can't last 3 days in bed?" However, she couldn't say it out loud. As for the demon who was eavesdropping in the corner, he was so angry that the veins on his forehead were popping. At this moment, he almost rushed out to prove that his physical strength was very good, but he held it in. He kept comforting himself, and telling himself not to argue with a rough woman. "What's wrong? I guessed it right? Aya, if you can't, you should quickly change to another man. A woman's sexual happiness is very important." Seeing that Lung Ruoxue was silent for a long time, Meng Bao continued to speak. Her words made everyone break out in cold sweat. They couldn't bear to listen to her anymore. She was really a powerful person. Uncle Long and the others slowly moved out of the garden without a sound. They kept feeling a cold wind in the garden, and a murder could happen at any time, so it seemed safer to leave. However, they also wanted to watch a good show, so they were very conflicted. After thinking for a long time, Uncle Long and the others felt that their lives were more important. They didn't find any excuses and directly swaggered out of the garden. However, they didn't go far. Instead, they hid in an inconspicuous corner outside the garden and continued to watch the show. "Do you want me to introduce you to someone?" Seeing that there were no outsiders in the garden, Meng Bao spoke even more unscrupulously. He even poked Lung Ruoxue's arm with a look of understanding and revealed a wretched smile. The expression on his face seemed to be saying, "I understand." When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she could not help but wipe away the cold sweat on her forehead and hurriedly said, "Thank you for your kind intentions, but it's enough for me to have a demon. I'm not interested in other men." When she said this, Lung Ruoxue was so scared that her little heart was trembling. She was afraid that the demon would suddenly jump out and kill her to vent his anger. She did not wish for Meng Bao to die in her own home. After all, she had a good impression of this person. At least compared to some hypocritical women, Meng Bao was very real and would say whatever he wanted. "Ai, that's really a pity. I was going to introduce you to a top-grade person," Meng Bao said with a look of pity. What? Lung Ruoxue was suspicious. Could it be that Meng Bao was here to introduce a man to her? "I'm telling you, I met 2 of the best men on the way. Those 2 men. That face, that figure, all of them were absolutely top-notch. Just looking at them would make one drool. However, they managed to escape." What a pity. The regret on Meng Bao's face was unconcealed. When Lung Ruoxue heard her words, the doubts in her heart grew even deeper. Why did these words sound so familiar? Had she heard of something similar somewhere? If they don't run away, I'll definitely catch them. All right, I can give you one. How can a woman complain about having too many men? Seeing that Lung Ruoxue did not respond, Meng Bao continued. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue was completely immersed in Meng Bao's words. She did not hear Meng Bao say that he wanted to give her a man. However, the demon heard it clearly and saw that Shuer did not refute it. Hence, he was filled with jealousy and hatred. The 2 unlucky men who were hiding in some unknown corner were also on his mind. "Shuer, what's there to eat? I'm hungry." Cheng Xian's voice rang out in the garden, before he strode in with Ning Haolan by his side. "I've finally found you too." Suddenly, Meng Bao let out a loud roar. Then, she jumped up in shock and dashed in front of Cheng Xian. Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan looked as if they had seen a ghost when they saw Meng Bao. Oh my god! Why did this female fiend chase him all the way here? The 2 men's faces were deathly pale as they pointed at Meng Bao, trembling with fear and unable to speak. Hee. We really have apeshit. Meng Bao saw that Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan were also very excited and happy. In fact, they were obviously frightened. Chapter 2143. An old acquaintance visits 3. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue had also returned to her senses. Seeing the inharmonious relationship between the three of them, she also understood. No wonder she felt that Meng Bao's words were so familiar. It turned out that she had heard it from Cheng Xian before. It was just that the roles in his words had been reversed. Shui save me. Cheng Xian was shocked. Then, he quickly hid behind Lung Ruoxue to seek protection. Ning Haolan did the same. However, he maintained his elegant demeanor as a noble young master, unlike Cheng Xian, who didn't care about his image and was impatient. Ugh. Lung Ruoxue's forehead was filled with black lines. What was going on? Was there a need for two grown men to be so scared of a woman? No, he saw a tomboy. But he didn't have to be so scared. She did not understand. However, what surprised her even more was that the men Meng Bao had taken a fancy to were Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan. It seemed that Meng Bao's taste had improved quite a bit after not seeing them for so long. She just did not know how Zhou Kuan was doing. Lung Ruoxue, you know them? They can't be your men, right? Upon seeing this, Meng Bao squinted his eyes and walked up to Lung Ruoxue. We are Shui men, so don't you dare have any ideas about us. Without giving Lung Ruoxue a chance to answer, Cheng Xian quickly rushed to say. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue wiped the cold sweat off her forehead without a word. The evildoer in the corner clenched his fist. Damn it. Cheng Xian was dead. The evil demon said hatefully. Although he knew that Cheng Xian was only using Shui as a shield, he was still unhappy. Moreover, he also wanted to hear how Cheng Xian was going to cover up his lie, so he hid and did not come out. Lung Ruoxue, are they really your men? After hearing Cheng Xian's words, Meng Bao asked doubtfully. Then she thought for a while and said, Don't you only have one man, that pretty boy? Why are there two more? We can't see the light. You understand. Cheng Xian was afraid that Lung Ruoxue would deny it, so he rushed to answer again. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she only looked at Cheng Xian sympathetically. She neither admitted nor denied it. However, she knew that Cheng Xian was going to be in deep trouble. So that's how it is. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Meng Bao seemed to believe her now. He then gave Lung Ruoxue a knowing look which left her speechless. Meng Bao continued, Lung Ruoxue, when you don't want these two men anymore, can I take over? She still couldn't give up. Although it was said that one shouldn't play with a friend's husband, she really had a good impression of these two men. Don't you like Zhou Kun's sturdy and durable ones? I don't think they meet your requirements, right? Meng Bao's words almost drove Lung Ruoxue mad, but she could not help but ask. Yup. But that doesn't stop me from liking them. Their bodies were very strong. Although I can't compare to Zhou Kuan, I can barely accept it. Meng Bao said honestly. You've been wronged. Lung Ruoxue really wanted to say this to Meng Bao after hearing his words. However, before she had a chance to speak, Cheng Xian was so frightened that he quickly said, Our bodies aren't strong at all. Don't force yourself. Besides, Shui won't abandon us. So you should give up as soon as possible. Who knows what will happen in the future? Meng Bao said nonchalantly. Then he gave Cheng Xian a charming look. However, what should have been a very charming move was a little out of place when it was done by a tough woman like her. Cheng Xian almost vomited. Fuck. He really couldn't stand such stimulation. At this moment, Cheng Xian made up his mind to stay away from terrifying women in the future, especially this kind of thirsty woman. It was really a test of one's heart's endurance. Meng Bao, how are things between you and Zhou Kuan? Lung Ruoxue saw that this triangular relationship was not easy to deal with and quickly changed the topic. It's all right. He's already married to me and is currently at home looking after his wife and raising his children. Meng Bao said proudly. Upon hearing this, Lung Ruoxue broke out in cold sweat once again. Zhou Kuan was taking care of his wife and raising his children at home. You're out hunting for women? Lung Ruoxue was speechless about this, but Meng Bao took it for granted. From this, it could be seen how strong and different Meng Bao's heart was. Then I really have to congratulate you on getting your wish. After a long while, Lung Ruoxua finally spoke. Hehe. Thank you. Meng Bao was extremely pleased with himself. After all, there were not many women in the divine realm who could marry a man. By the way, how long have you been out? Aren't you worried at home? Following that, Lung Ruoxua asked in a very reserved manner. You should go home now. However, Meng Bao could not hear such a profound hidden meaning. Therefore, he said indifferently, I've only been out for half a year. My family won't worry about me. I don't need to worry about my family either. My brothers will help me take care of them. That's good. Lung Ruoxua had nothing else to say. But she could not just ask him to leave. After all, other than wanting to beat up Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan, Meng Bao had not done anything that was too annoying. Just like that, Meng Bao became one of Lung Ruoxia's guests and temporarily stayed in the Lung clan's main residence. If she did, Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan would be in for a tragedy. Although Meng Bao didn't directly pester the two, his eyes were fixed on them. He was absolutely focused and didn't look away. After a few days, the two of them tolerated it. However, after staying here for several days, Meng Bao did not have any intention of leaving, which made them a little scared. In the end, the two of them simply locked themselves in their room. Out of sight, out of mind. Uncle Long and the others had also watched a good show because of Meng Bao's arrival. Therefore, they were extremely enthusiastic about Meng Bao, which moved him to the point of tears. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Song, who had been thrown out by the demon, had not appeared. Lung Ruoxua started to worry. Evildoer, is Azure angry? Otherwise, why hasn't he appeared? In the garden, Lung Ruoxua looked worriedly at the demon sitting opposite her. Angry? It won't be angry with you, don't worry. The evildoer consoled her, but his expression was one of disapproval. He had been causing trouble for Cheng Xian and Ning Haolan recently, so he really had no time to think about Song. However, he was certain that even if Song was angry, he would be angry at him and not at Shui. As expected, just as evildoer finished speaking, Azure's voice rang out in the garden. Neo, I'm coming. As soon as she finished speaking, a snowy white, furry little thing appeared in Lung Ruoxia's arms. Song, where have you been all this time? Lung Ruoxua hugged Song tightly and asked with concern. Sensing Lung Ruoxia's worry, Azure was very pleased. Then it said with a proud expression, Hehe, I'm giving a certain someone special training for you. Chapter 2144. The brothers meet again. 1. What? Lung Ruoxua had a suspicious look on her face. She had never heard of anyone having special training. Those people, they've been locked up for too long, and their strength is no longer the same as before. So, I'm giving them special training. In fact, the special training was just an excuse. In fact, it was venting its dissatisfaction with the evil man on those people. Therefore, it trained them particularly miserably. It just didn't know if those people would learn to be obedient after these days of inhuman special training. Song is tired. By the way, have those people recovered from their injuries? Lung Ruoxua had heard from Qingju that those people were her master's subordinates, so she naturally paid some attention to them. However, those people were no different from strangers to her, so when she found out that they had been taken away by Tsang, she had not been concerned about their situation. Thinking about it, since they could become master's subordinates, their adaptability should not be bad. Most of them have recovered and have even recovered to their peak strength. However, those people are not easy to deal with. If you want them to acknowledge you, I'm afraid it will take time. Song looked at Lung Ruoxua and asked worriedly. Although he had given those people special training for a long time, and they were all like obedient babies in front of him, Song knew that being obedient in front of him didn't mean that he trusted Neo. Originally, those people had a bit of arrogance and their eyes were on the top of their heads. It was very difficult to enter their eyes. Now that they had recovered their original strength, wanting to obtain their acknowledgement was even more difficult than before. However, Azure wouldn't directly exterminate them just because they didn't listen. After all, in its eyes, those people would definitely be Neo's best whetstone. If they were obediently obedient, he might not even look at them. It was precisely because of this idea that it had tried its best to help those people recover their strength. Now it was time to see the results. At that time, it would naturally be clear who was good and who was bad, and who could be used. You need time? Do I have to gain their approval? Lung Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked after listening to Wan Song. Although those people were her master's subordinates, she felt that she did not have to use them. After all, she was well aware that those people used to have extraordinary identities, and would not easily trust her. What she hated the most was trouble. Instead of using people who looked down on her for the sake of her master, she would rather train her own helpers. Ihi. Neo obviously doesn't need their approval, but I feel that you should prove to them that not acknowledging you is a wrong choice, and at the same time show them your strength. Ruthlessly crush them. Beat them to the ground. Azure said with a gloating expression. All right. Then I'll receive them in the living room. After hearing Song's words, Lung Ruoxue agreed. They would have to meet sooner or later, so it was better to meet now than to choose another day. With that, Lung Ruoxue, Evildoer and Song, the two humans and one beast walked towards the living room. When they reached the living room, Lung Ruoxue indicated for Song to move the people out of the god pagoda. When Dongfang Yu and the others came out, they were a little confused for a moment, but they soon recovered. When they saw Lung Ruoxue and the evil demon standing in the middle of the living room, they were clearly stunned. Then Dongfang Yu glanced at Song before he carefully opened his mouth. And you are? The man and woman in front of him were simply too outstanding. Not only were the two of them beautiful, but their bearing was also extraordinary. It was obvious that they were not ordinary people. Moreover, they were both divine emperors, but judging from their auras, they should be stronger than ordinary divine emperors. I'm Lung Ruoxue, he's my fiancé. Lung Ruoxue said calmly. She could tell that the man who spoke was the strongest among them. However, looking at how careful he was, could it be that he had been trained very badly by Tsang? Lung Ruoxue started to pity him. When Tsang trained others, he was never soft-hearted. You are Master Yes disciple? Dongfang Yu confirmed. He had heard the Totoro mention this name before. Yes. Lung Ruoxue nodded but did not say anything. She waited for him to continue. However, Dongfang Yu did not know what to say. Firstly, he did not expect Master Yes female disciple to look so weak. Secondly, he did not expect Lung Ruoxue to have the strength of a divine sovereign. This was beyond his expectations. Yes subordinates were secretly following Dongfang Yu's lead. If he didn't speak, others wouldn't dare to speak even if they had thousands of things to say in their hearts. Moreover, there was a Totoro staring at them like a tiger watching its prey. They didn't know if they had said something wrong and made the Totoro unhappy. Would it tear them in two in anger? However, there was no lack of people in this world who were not content with their place and liked to find trouble. Seeing that no one was speaking, Yaoji glanced at Lung Ruoxue before looking at the evildoer. She then said with a look of disdain, You may be Master Yes disciple, but we may not listen to you. Upon hearing this, Lung Ruoxue was agitated and excited. Was he trying to pick a fight? That's great. He wasn't afraid of them finding fault. He was only afraid of them ignoring him. As long as they were willing to find trouble, he would have a reason to attack. Wasn't it? Moreover, she felt that this woman was hostile to her. Why was that? Even if the same sex repelled each other, there was no need to be hostile to a woman he had just met, right? Moreover, he was her savior. Was he another ingrate? At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue's eyes turned cold as she glared back. She had never been afraid of anyone in her life. Moreover, this woman was only a divine emperor. She didn't have the strength to compete with a divine emperor. Following that, Lung Ruoxue also spoke with an indifferent expression. It doesn't matter. I've already done my master a favor by saving you. As for you, you can go wherever you want. Do you know who we are? You actually dare to speak to us like this? Hearing Lung Ruoxue's nonchalant tone, Yaoji was instantly enraged. In the past, people like them could call the wind and summon the rain in the immortal realm. But now, a little girl was actually looking down on them. How could the proud Yaoji take this? I know you are my master's subordinates. Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly. She then continued. Do you know who I am? You? Aren't you Master Yes disciple? Yaoji didn't quite understand what Lung Ruoxue meant, and asked in a daze. I'm not just Master's disciple, I'm also your savior. You. Is this how you treat your savior? If I had known that you were a bunch of ingrates, I wouldn't have risked my life to save you. Lung Ruoxue said coldly. As she spoke, her beautiful eyes swept across the people present. She noticed that a few of them had a look of embarrassment on their faces. Chapter 2145. The brothers meet again too. Following that, Lung Ruoxue continued. Of course I don't need you to repay me. I've never thought of asking you to listen to my orders. I saved you all because of Master. Now that someone has made their stand clear, please leave immediately. She asked him to leave. After she finished speaking, Lung Ruoxue could clearly see the shocked expressions on many people's faces. It was obvious that they did not expect her to say such words. However, Lung Ruoxue did not say these words to play hard to get. It was a decision that she had made after meeting these people. These people were all arrogant and unruly people. It was not easy to make them as loyal to him as they were to their master, and he did not like to force people to do things. Therefore, letting them go was the most correct choice. Maybe they would even look at him in a higher light. Dongfang Yu and the others didn't respond for a long time after Lung Ruoxue finished speaking. Yaoji, who had started the fight, widened her eyes in disbelief. In fact, other than her jealousy, she had provoked Lung Ruoxue because she didn't want to be under a young girl. That would make her feel very aggrieved. But now she didn't know what to do. According to their prior discussion, they wanted to first see if Lung Ruoxue had potential, and whether she was worthy of their assistance before deciding on their future plans. However, due to her provocation, things had clearly deviated from their planned trajectory. This gave her a bad feeling for no reason. Then, she sneaked a glance at Dongfang Yu and saw that his brows were tightly furrowed as if he was thinking about something. This made her feel even more uncertain. They wouldn't blame him for ruining things, right? Yaoji was so aggrieved that she was about to cry. The hatred he had for Lung Ruoxue grew even deeper. That detestable Lung Ruoxue. If she had not said such words, would she need to be on tenterhooks? After a long time. Since Miss Lung is so righteous, we'll take our leave first, Dongfang Yu said gloomily. Thank you for saving our lives, Miss Lung. We'll definitely repay you in the future if we have the chance. He addressed Lung Ruoxue as Miss Lung, which was enough to show his attitude that Lung Ruoxue had nothing to do with them. When the others heard Dongfang Yu's words, they all looked at him with their mouths agape, as if they couldn't believe what he said. Let's go, Dongfang Yu said to the others with a bitter smile. Then, everyone present left the living room with Dongfang Yu and left the Lung family's main residence. As he watched them leave, the evildoer said indifferently, Swear, are we just going to let them go like this? What else? You can keep people, but you can't keep your heart. I don't want some half-hearted people. Besides, they're only testing me. They'll come back. These people were very loyal to her master, but she wasn't her master. She couldn't ask them to be loyal to her just because they were loyal to her master. That was simply unrealistic and would cause them to have a rebellious heart. Wasn't that woman the best example? However, she admitted that she didn't have much luck with women, so she didn't really care about that woman's attitude. However, if they turned back, she wouldn't allow anyone to treat her with that kind of attitude. Girl, you did well. At this time, Azure spoke with a look of agreement. In this day and age, rushing was not a business. Therefore, if he wanted to subdue those people, he could only wait for them to deliver themselves to his door. They must have thought it through by then. But at that time, it wouldn't be easy for them to occupy an important position in Nio's heart. To them, this was a huge loss. Thinking of this, Song couldn't help but smile evilly. Following that, the two humans and one beast left the living room and went to the garden to meet up with Uncle Long and the others. As soon as they entered the garden, Uncle Long and the others pulled Lung Ruoxue aside and asked her about it. Swear, how is it? Have those people been subdued? Uncle Long asked anxiously. No, I haven't. I drove them away. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. The moment Lung Ruoxue said this, Uncle Long and the rest were stunned. Swear actually drove him away? After a long while, Uncle Long and the others came back to their senses. Then the master of the Ning family couldn't help but ask, "Shuer, why is that? Those people are quite strong, and some of them were even my idols in the past. They're not very satisfied with me, so why should I keep them? I don't have that kind of spare money." Lung Ruoxua said nonchalantly, That's true." Hearing this, the master of the Ning family understood. Among those people, most of them had already been famous for many years when he was still very young. It was certain that they had pride in their hearts, and it was indeed difficult to make them submit to a little girl. However, Shuer was their savior. In order to save them, they almost lost their lives. How could they just leave like that? At this moment, the master of the Ning family was a little unhappy with them. At the same time, he ignored the fact that Lung Ruoxua was the one who had chased them out, who asked him to shield her. After that, Uncle Long and the others were afraid that Lung Ruoxua would feel bad, so they quickly changed the topic and told Lung Ruoxua a lot of interesting things that she did not know. Of course, they were all things that had happened at home recently, and were related to Meng Bao. Lung Ruoxua could feel the care and concern Uncle Long and the others had for her, and her heart was filled with warmth. These people were people she acknowledged and were also her family. They were people she had to protect with all her might, and it was because of this that they had a very important place in her heart. As for the subordinates of her master, they didn't have a sense of belonging to her, so how could she not feel the same towards them? After Dongfang Yu left the Lung family's main residence with his men, he didn't say a word. Seeing this, the others didn't dare to speak either. Yaoji was also like a frightened little rabbit, not daring to look at Dongfang Yu's cold expression. "Brother Yu, where are we going?" At this time, Uncle Lien walked to Dongfang Yu's side and asked in a low voice, "Go and meet up with Lin and the others." Dongfang Yu said indifferently, "Can we find them now?" Uncle Lien asked with uncertainty, "Let's try." Dongfang Yu wasn't too sure either, but he wouldn't say anything that would make his team lose confidence. Soon, they left the land of demons. Then Dongfang Yu led the group to the most remote place in the Divine Realm, the Icy Land. The northernmost part of the Divine Realm was the place with the harshest and worst living conditions. Not only was it covered in ice all year round, but the spiritual qi there was also not as rich as other places. There were even fewer people there. Even beasts who were not too picky about their living environment did not like to find that place as their territory. However, Dongfang Yu had to go there. When Lung Ruoxua and the rest heard the news from the silver rats, they were puzzled for a long time. In the end, they finally realized that Dongfang Yu must have gone there to look for someone. If it was just to avoid the miasma's search, there was no need to go to such a remote place. Chapter 2146. The brothers meet again 3. As for who they were looking for, Lung Ruoxua and the rest had no idea. Lung Ruoxua only ordered the silver rats to continue keeping an eye on him. Then, she went off to bond with the newly born second senior brother. A month later, Dongfang Yu and the others had arrived at a place called Black Fog City. That place was shrouded in fog all year round. Even during the day, the weather was gloomy, and the cold wind was blowing. People who just went there would be unable to bear the cold. Therefore, there were not many deities living in Black Fog City. When Dongfang Yu and the others arrived, they immediately looked for an inn. It was the only inn in Black Fog City. Moreover, the business was so cold that the shopkeeper and waiters in the inn were a little drowsy. The shopkeeper and the waiters were immediately excited when they saw the guests who had come to stay with great difficulty. After they enthusiastically sent Dongfang Yu and the others to the rooms, they immediately began to nag at them about their well-being, and even prepared some food for them. However, when they saw the food, Dongfang Yu and the others immediately lost their appetites. "I'm sorry, this place is too far away, so there are limited ingredients. Everyone, please make do with this," the shopkeeper said apologetically. However, he was not really apologetic. After all, the people of the Divine Realm did not have to eat food. "We don't want to eat. Shopkeeper, please leave." Dongfang Yu didn't have much of an appetite, and seeing that the others were also uninterested, he said to the shopkeeper, "All right then. I'll take my leave first. If there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to tell me." The shopkeeper said very politely. All right. Dongfeng Yu nodded, and then gave Uncle Lien a look. Uncle Lien understood, and immediately went to plug the door in. He even specially checked it. Brother Yu, are Lin and the others really here? Uncle Lien asked in disbelief. Yes. Dongfeng Yu nodded but did not say much. In fact, he was so certain because he had a special secret code between him and Lin. Only he and Lin knew this secret code. He had followed Lin's secret code to come here, but he had not told anyone about it. Rest early. Dongfeng Yu continued. Uncle Lien nodded and left Dongfeng Yu's room. Dongfeng Yu sat cross-legged on his bed and closed his eyes to rest. The next morning, Dongfeng Yu only bid his farewells to Uncle Lien before leaving the inn. It was already afternoon when they returned. Uncle Lien saw that Dongfeng Yu was travel-worn and tired, so he didn't ask any questions. He only told him to rest well and didn't disturb him. 3 days later, a young man came to the door. At that time, Dongfeng Yu was chatting with Uncle Lien in the room. When he saw the young man, Dongfeng Yu was so excited that he couldn't speak. He stared at the man in front of him in a daze. Big brother. The young man's eyes were filled with tears when he saw Dongfeng Yu, and he called out in an excited voice. Lin. After a while, Dongfeng Yu came back to his senses and looked at the young man in excitement. The next second, the two men hugged each other tightly. Seeing this scene, Uncle Lien couldn't help but shed tears. The young man was Dongfeng Yu's younger brother. His name was Dongfeng Lin. As for these two brothers, one was good at fighting while the other was good at strategizing. It could be said that the two of them had joined forces. Back in the days, they were all powerful in the divine realm and were proud of the divine realm. However, at the same time, the two of them had disappeared without a trace for a very long time. In the current divine realm, the two of them had long become taboo legends and had even disappeared from the sight of everyone. At least, in the current divine realm, there were not many people who knew the names of the two brothers. Moreover, most of them had gone into seclusion. After slightly calming down, Dongfeng Lin asked about his big brother's recent situation. When he found out that his big brother had been imprisoned by fog ice, Dongfeng Lin was filled with guilt. He had once searched for Dongfeng Yu and the others for a long time, but unfortunately, he had found nothing. Moreover, the group of people he had brought with him had been chased by the fog. At that time, even if he wanted to continue looking for Dongfeng Yu and the others, he had no strength. In order to preserve his strength, he had led his people to live in seclusion here. After all, those who had followed him were the descendants of Master Yes loyal subordinates. He had to ensure their safety first. Therefore, he had stopped searching for Dongfeng Yu and the others. However, when he saw his big brother, all the guilt he had felt for so many years surged up. Big brother, I'm sorry that you've suffered for so many years. If I had known that you were in the hands of Wuxia, I would have found a way to save you. Dongfeng Lin said with a face full of shame. In fact, the two brothers had each led a group of people to escape that year. Although his big brother had shouldered the mission of drawing away the pursuers, the people who had followed his big brother were stronger than them. As a result, he had never thought that his big brother and the others would be captured and imprisoned by the fog. After all, in his heart, he had always felt that it would not be a problem for his big brother and the others to escape the fog. Moreover, at that time, in order to avoid the pursuit of Wu Jing, they could only keep hiding here and there. Naturally, they were relatively isolated from the outside world. Therefore, he really did not receive any news from his big brother. However, he knew clearly that his big brother was still alive. Therefore, he did not expect that something would happen to his big brother and the others. After sneakily searching for his big brother and the others for a period of time, he temporarily gave up for the sake of the overall situation. However, in order for the two of them to be able to meet smoothly in the future, he had deliberately left some secret signals in some inconspicuous places that only his big brother could understand, hoping that his big brother would find him one day. But he did not expect that he would wait for so long. When he thought of this, Dongfeng Lin's guilt grew deeper. Seeing this, Dongfeng Yu sighed and said, Lin, back then, we were caught of our own free will. What? Dongfeng Lin was shocked when he heard this. He looked at Dongfeng Yu with a dumbfounded expression, unable to speak. That year, we knew that Master Yu was in the hands of Wu Yan. In order to save Master Yu, we sneaked back into Yu City. Later Wu Lian lied to us. As long as we surrendered, she would let Master Yu go. However, we didn't expect that Master Yu would still die in the end. Dongfang Yu said with a sorrowful expression. Ramice. Hearing this, Dongfang Lin gnashed his teeth in hatred. Although he had never personally experienced what his big brother was talking about, he could imagine what the Ripple Mist would do. How did Master Yu fall? Dongfang Lin couldn't help but ask. That year, after the incident, Master Yu immediately arranged for them to leave. Although he wanted to stay by Master Ye's side at the time, Master Yu did not allow it, and made him swear to protect the remaining bloodline of each family. He did as he was told, and left the imperial city with those people. However, his heart had always been worried about every move of the imperial city. Chapter 2147. The brothers meet again for. At that time he was willing to leave easily because Master Yu said that if they stayed, he would be distracted and unable to concentrate on dealing with Wu Chun. When he heard this, he could only leave Yu City with those children. Who would have thought that he would hear the news of Master Ye's death? Wu Lian had become a divine master, and his brother and the others were nowhere to be found. He had led a group of young people, and could only hide and live a difficult life. But fortunately, they had finally made it through the most difficult period. I'm not too sure about the specific situation. Dongfang Yu said gloomily. It doesn't matter, we'll find out eventually. Big brother. Let's go. I'll bring you to meet the others. Dongfang Lin didn't want his big brother to be immersed in the unhappy memories of the past, so he immediately changed the topic. All right. Dongfang Yu nodded and left the inn with Dongfang Lin. Dongfang Lin led Dongfang Yu and the others through a few streets before arriving at an unremarkable courtyard. The small courtyard looked ordinary, but it was a whole new world inside. Dongfang Lin led them into a room. Then, after casting a few spells, the middle of the wall split apart, revealing a secret passage. Following the secret passage, Dongfang Yu and the others saw a magnificent underground castle. The castle was like a small city, with all the essentials. People could be seen busy everywhere. When they saw Dongfang Lin, many of them greeted him warmly. Dongfang Lin replied with a smile. Then he led Dongfang Yu and the others to the meeting hall in the castle. The meeting hall was already filled with people. Moreover, many people were looking forward to it, and some even looked anxious. When Dongfang Lin led Dongfang Yu and the others into the meeting room, everyone who was sitting stood up in unison, and looked at Dongfang Yu and the others with excitement. Ancestor. At this time, a middle-aged man excitedly threw himself into Uncle Lian's arms and began to cry. Seeing this scene, Uncle Lian was stunned at first. Then he suddenly reacted and couldn't help but say, You are Lianjia? It's me. Old ancestor. The middle-aged man named Lianjia raised his head, and looked at his ancestor with some embarrassment. You've already grown so big. Uncle Lian sighed endlessly. He never thought that he would see this little fellow again. After Lianjia took the lead, those people who had been waiting for a long time with excited faces also pounced towards their own ancestors. Dongfang Yu's heart was filled with excitement when he saw them acknowledge each other. However, he didn't have any descendants, so he could only watch others being intimate with each other. Big brother, you still have me. Dongfang Lin walked to his brother's side and said softly. His face even revealed a look of adoration, which made Dongfang Yu's heart soften. Yup, I still have a younger brother, Dongfang Yu said with a smile. Then, Dongfang Yu and Dongfang Lin left the meeting room to the excited crowd. They left quietly because they had a lot to say to each other. In Dongfang Lin's room, Dongfang Yu told him about Lung Ruoxue. After hearing this, Dongfang Lin's eyes widened in disbelief. Before this, he thought that his big brother and the others had found a way to escape by themselves, so he didn't ask much. However, he didn't expect that his big brother and the others were actually saved by someone, and by Master Ye's disciple at that. However, he had also heard from his big brother that Lung Ruoxue was the disciple of Master Yu. It was no wonder that they did not know of her existence. Wait a minute. Lung Ruoxue? Why did he feel that this name was a little familiar? Dongfang Lin couldn't recall where he had heard this name before, but he was definitely no stranger to it. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but ask curiously, "Big brother, since Master Yes' disciple has been found, why are you still frowning?" He noticed that when Big Brother mentioned Lung Ruoxua, his expression was unusually conflicted. Could it be that Lung Ruoxua had given Big Brother a difficult problem? "We were chased out by that girl," Dong Fengyu said gloomily. He didn't want Lin Fan to know about this, but he had no choice but to tell him. "Arg. It can't be right? Why is that?" When Dong Fenglin heard this, a rare crack appeared on his gentle face. However, he was more curious. "It's a long story," Dong Fengyu sighed. Then he recounted the entire incident to Dong Fenglin. Who would have thought that Dong Fenglin would burst into wild laughter after listening to him? Dong Fengyu's face was full of black lines when he saw his brother's expression. His younger brother, who had always been calm, had actually lost his composure today, and it was even after listening to his words. "Are you done laughing?" Dong Fengyu's face darkened, but he suppressed his anger. "Ah, big brother. I'm sorry, it's not that I want to laugh, but it's just too funny. I didn't expect you guys to be despised by others and chased out like flies. I like that little girl." Dong Fenglin laughed evilly. Even though he had never met Lung Ruoxua before, he had to give her a high score for her character, and the fact that she dared to chase away his big brother. "Are you gloating over my misfortune?" Dong Fengyu said, speechless. "Ehe. Of course not. But big brother, she's still your savior, yet you're acting all high and mighty in front of her. It's really a bit too much. If I were her, I wouldn't treat you well either," Dong Fenglin said. In fact, although his big brother had only described the conversation with him, with his understanding of the people around his big brother, he naturally knew some of their thoughts. Then Dong Fenglin added, "How can you make Yaoji speak? Other than being jealous, that woman only knows how to ruin things." He didn't like Yaoji. Chapter 2148. Working at the Yao family house 1. "Do you think I'll let her talk nonsense?" By the time she said it, it was too late for us to stop her, so we offended her, Dong Fengyu said helplessly. He did not expect the girl to have such a personality. She did not give them any face and directly kicked them out. This was a novel experience for them. Hearing his big brother's depressed tone, Dong Fenglin still laughed without giving him any face. In fact, he laughed quite happily. This way, the atmosphere between the two brothers became even more harmonious. After that, the two of them chatted for a long time before Dong Fenglin reluctantly let his big brother rest. Alone in his room, Dong Fengyu subconsciously touched the scar on his face. It was only then that he remembered that the scar that had accompanied him for many years had been repaired by him on his way to find Dong Fenglin. He had wanted to keep the scar as a memento, but he was afraid that Lin would be heartbroken if he saw it, so he decided to meet Lin in his best condition. The facts proved that he had made the right decision. Then he thought of Lung Ruoxua. That girl really gave him a headache. Moreover, he could also see that the girl was quite opinionated and had a very stubborn character. Most importantly, the girl did not give in an inch and did not give them face. This made him, who was once an all-powerful expert, very helpless. However, from this point, it also proved that the girl was not a person who bullied the weak and feared the strong. At that moment, Lung Ruoxua, Bing Yao, and Qing Yang appeared in his mind. He knew each of their strengths. After comparing them, he realized that Lung Ruoxua, who he had only met once, had the upper hand in his heart. This fact made him feel very incredulous. How did this happen? He had only met that girl once, and that girl had chased them out. According to common sense, shouldn't he be very angry and have a very bad impression of that girl? However, after thinking for a long time, he suddenly realized that he didn't seem to be too angry. His impression of that girl seemed to have improved. Dong Fengyu broke out in a cold sweat when he thought of this. Damn it. Could it be that he had a tendency to be abused? No. He would never admit that he liked to be abused, but he could not deny that he had a good impression of Lung Ruoxua. As expected of Master Yes' disciple, Dong Fengyu couldn't help but sigh. However, he still couldn't figure out why he had such a good impression of Lung Ruoxua. This didn't make sense. Forget it. Since he couldn't understand it, had better not think about it. Dongfeng Yu decided to chase Lung Ruoxue out of his mind for the time being. Otherwise, he would not be able to rest. For 3 consecutive days, Dongfeng Yu locked himself in his room. In order to let his big brother rest well, Dongfeng Lin did not disturb him. However, Lung Ruoxue's great achievements were already laid out in front of him. After reading through Lung Ruoxue's information, Dongfeng Lin couldn't help but smile. He didn't expect this little girl to be so shocking. In less than 100 years, she had advanced to the divine sovereign realm. What kind of monstrous talent was this? Moreover, she seemed to be involved in some of the more secretive things that happened in the divine realm. Of course, those things were not out in the open, so not many people knew about it. However, these things could not be hidden from him. Although he had led his subordinates in seclusion for many years, he had secretly established his own forces in the divine world. At least, his information network was not inferior to the God Lord's estate. It was just that he had not shown it to the public. However, if he were to combine all his forces in the dark, it would definitely be a powerful force that would shock people. And Lung Ruoxue's experiences had also made him more interested in that little girl. Thinking of this, Dongfeng Lin immediately went to find Dongfeng Yu. When he saw Dongfeng Yu, he spoke his thoughts directly. "Brother, I've decided to go and meet Lung Ruoxue." Dongfeng Lin said with a smile. "Why should I? That girl won't give you a good face." The moment he heard Lung Ruoxue's name, Dongfeng Yu reflexively resisted. That might not be the case. If I, as Sir Yes subordinate, were to visit her, could she possibly chase me out? Dongfeng Lin said with a smirk. "It's hard to say. She's really capable of doing such a thing." Dongfeng Yu said through gritted teeth. He was the best example. "Then he'll try to." Dongfeng Lin said stubbornly. "All right. Go and try. Don't cry when you come back with blood." Dongfeng Yu said angrily, his face a little dark. "Brother, I'm not a child anymore. Why would I cry?" Dongfeng Lin said with a faint smile. When he saw his big brother's depressed and conflicted expression, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. "It's good that you don't cry. If you want to go, go. It's good to see her. You'll know how evil she is." Dongfeng Yu said fiercely. Yes. I have to see her now. I've decided to leave tomorrow." Dongfeng Lin's smile grew wider. The next morning, Dongfeng Lin really set off with only 2 subordinates. However, the 2 subordinates kept on mumbling along the way. In the end, Dongfeng Lin couldn't take it anymore and roared, and the 2 of them shut their mouths in grievance. After more than a month, the 3 of them arrived at the land of demons. Looking at the land of demons that was completely different from what he remembered, Dongfeng Lin couldn't help but exclaim in admiration in his heart. That Lung Ruoxue was really extraordinary. She really didn't know why the people around Big Brother didn't like her. Yes, quite a number of people around Big Brother were disgusted with Lung Ruoxue. It couldn't be said that he was repulsed. It should be said that they felt too good about themselves, to the point that they didn't even look up to that little girl Lung Ruoxue. Hence, in a short few days after their publicity, Lung Ruoxue's name had spread throughout his underground base. Of course, it definitely wasn't a good reputation. Otherwise, his 2 subordinates wouldn't have advised him not to meet Lung Ruoxue along the way. However, he had to meet Lung Ruoxue. At the same time, he was wondering if they would still treat Lung Ruoxue the same way if they knew what she had done. Lung Ruoxue was not an easy person to get along with. Based on her methods, she had really given Sir Yu too much face by letting those people leave safely. This was the conclusion he came to after learning about Lung Ruoxue's past in the divinity. His information network in the God world was very tight. Therefore, most things could not be hidden from him. However, he could not guarantee that the information he had on Lung Ruoxue was complete. After all, Lung Ruoxue had many helpers by her side, and those people were not easy to deal with. However, the information he had obtained was enough for him to view Lung Ruoxue in a new light. However, he hadn't even told his big brother about the information he had. This could also be considered as his selfishness. Because he also looked down on some people around his big brother, he also wanted to make them suffer a little. Otherwise, those people would always have their eyes on top of their heads. Chapter 2149. Working at the Yao family house too, there were also some people around him. It was time to give him a beating. Thinking up to this point, Dong Fonglin shot a glance at his two subordinates and warned, "When you see Lung Ruoxua and the people around her, do you know what you should and shouldn't say? If you make that little girl unhappy, I can't protect you." "We won't say anything, my lord." The two subordinates looked at each other and quickly said. Dong Fonglin nodded his head lightly when he heard their words, because he could tell that the two of them were still a little unwilling. However, it didn't matter. Once they caused trouble and learned their lesson, they would remember it. "Let's go to the Yao clan to broaden our horizons." Dong Fonglin pointed at the Yao family building not far away and said. Then he walked toward the Yao family building. His two subordinates immediately followed. Because it was early in the morning, there were not many customers in the Yao family building. Thus, Dong Fonglin and his two subordinates were invited in without even going through the queue. After they entered, a waiter immediately led them to their seats in the hall. Then he took out a list of prices and handed it to Dong Fonglin. When Dong Fonglin saw this, he gasped, "Oh my God! Could this place be a black shop? Even the cheapest dish cost 100 top-grade crystals. It's a top-grade crystal." It was not low-grade, middle-grade, or high-grade, but supreme-grade. He couldn't understand. Since when did top-grade crystals become so common in the divine realm? The price here was so expensive, and yet it was so popular. It really didn't make sense. However, he immediately thought of the auction that had been set up here. The time of the auction was uncertain, and the items auctioned were indeed enough to make people go crazy. There were some things that even he was envious of, but the auction was not held every day. If he made some aristocratic families stay here for a long time just because there were some good things in the auction, it would really be too much of a waste of money. Alright. He was just too rich. At least, if it was him, he would definitely not do such a thing. After thinking for a long time, Dong Fonglin's greatest feeling was that he regretted coming in. Sob. He had a family to support. There were too many people, so he was poor. He really couldn't afford to spend here. Even though he had heard that the Yao family's food was very expensive, he had never dreamed that the food here would be so ridiculously expensive. When he saw the price, his heart ached so much that it bled. However, since he had entered, wouldn't it be a little embarrassing if he left without eating anything? After all, he was once a famous person in the divine realm. Although there might not be many people who knew about him now, he could not even get over such an embarrassing matter. Forget it. Since he was here, then don't come for nothing. In the end, Dong Fonglin made up his mind and ordered the cheapest dish, hot and sour shredded potatoes. Speaking of which, he had lived in the immortal realm for so long, and he really didn't know what a potato was. It didn't seem to be something from the immortal realm. However, when he was done ordering, he caught a glimpse of the waiter's disbelieving gaze, which made him want to find a hole in the ground to hide in. It looked like he was still embarrassed. Woo. That. I just want to make it up to you first. If it's delicious, then we can order something else. Dong Fonglin laughed awkwardly and explained. However, he regretted it immediately after explaining. Wasn't he trying to hide something? What's the point of explaining? However, the waiter was more cultured and said, "I should." Then he retreated. After the waiter left, Dong Fonglin couldn't help but wipe away the cold sweat on his forehead. He didn't want to come here anymore. He did not expect that after not moving around in the divine realm for so many years, he would lose so much face the moment he came out. How could he endure this? Unfortunately, his two subordinates did not understand what their master meant, and did not see the price on the price list. When they saw that Dong Fonglin had only ordered one dish, the two of them could not help but ask in a low voice, "My lord, is one dish enough?" Fortunately, the two of them spoke in a low voice. Otherwise, Dong Fonglin would be even more depressed. However, Dong Fonglin was equally unhappy when he heard their words. We are gods. Eating is not the most important thing. The most important thing is to gain some experience. Dong Fonglin said calmly. However, he was definitely not calm in his heart. You're right, master. When the two subordinates heard Dong Fonglin's words, they quickly flattered him. At this moment, the hot and sour shredded potatoes that Dong Fonglin had ordered were also served. Along with the dishes, there was also a bowl of rice. Please enjoy your meal. The waiter said respectfully and then left. After the waiter left, Dongfang Lin and his two subordinates stared at the plate of potato strips in a daze. Dongfang Lin was thinking that the dish was quite beautiful. The light yellow fine silk coupled with the red shredded chili made it look very pleasing to the eye. It was no wonder that their dishes could be sold at sky-high prices. This was even the cheapest dish. Then he picked up a piece with his chopsticks and tasted it. He was shocked by what he saw. Oh my God! How could this dish be so delicious? That should be potato strips. The spiciness had a hint of sourness, and it was crunchy. He couldn't put down his chopsticks after eating a mouthful. His appetite was simply great. With this thought in mind, the speed at which he took the food naturally became faster and faster. His two subordinates saw their master eating so happily and couldn't help but swallow their saliva. However, they didn't dare to snatch food from the tiger's mouth of their master, because looking at the way their master protected his food, they might die. Poor Dongfang Lin. Even though he had never been a fan of food, he had eaten many exotic delicacies. But now he had been captured by a plate of ordinary hot and sour shredded potatoes. Moreover, after finishing one plate, he still wasn't satisfied, so he ordered a few more plates and let his subordinates try them. As a result, the three of them began to gobble down the food. My lord, this dish is really too delicious. A subordinate's mouth was full of food, but he didn't forget to praise her. However, Dongfang Lin didn't have the time to pay attention to him at the moment. He was only focused on eating. 10 more. Another subordinate shouted. Gradually, the number of customers in the restaurant also increased. When those customers saw the way they ate, they glanced at the stacks of plates on their table that were half the height of a person. Everyone secretly despised them. They were really country bumpkins who had not seen the world. Who would eat so crazily? How much money was that? Yes. They were mainly worried about the money. If it were him, they would definitely not be willing to be so extravagant. With feelings of envy, jealousy, and hatred, everyone took their seats. However, they kept peeking at Dongfang Lin and the others with envious eyes from time to time. Dongfang Lin and the others, who were eating happily, were completely unaware of it. However, when it was time to pay, Dongfang Lin and the other two were dumbfounded. How much did you say? Dongfang Lin gulped and blinked as he asked. Was he hearing things? She must be hearing things. How could it be more than 20,000? Chapter 2150. Working at the Yao Family House 3. A total of 20,100 top-grade crystals. The waiter said without changing his expression. 20,000? We didn't eat much. Why is it so expensive? Dongfang Lin's two subordinates could not help but ask. A plate of hot and sour shredded potatoes costs 100 top-grade crystals, and you've eaten 201 plates. Count how much it costs. The waiter said indifferently, but in his heart he couldn't help but think. These three people can't be thinking of eating the overlord's meal, right? Hehe. It would be great if that was the case. Recently, no one had dared to cause trouble in the Yao family building. They were so bored that their hair was about to grow. Then he glanced at Dongfang Lin and the other two and thought, I wonder if these three can take a beating? There were quite a few of them, and they all wanted to practice. That many. Dongfang Lin was completely dumbfounded after hearing what the waiter had to say. He looked at the plates on the table, and was at a loss for words. The evidence was irrefutable, and he couldn't refute it even if he wanted to. However, it was fortunate that he didn't know what the waiter was thinking. Otherwise, he might have vomited blood. But now, it was enough to make him depressed, because he didn't seem to have any money. However, he might get beaten up if he said this. He could already see some people rubbing their fists and getting ready for action. I can't help it, you guys eat too much. The waiter shrugged his shoulders and said helplessly. The three of them had eaten more than 200 plates. He had not expected this. In just a short while, they had used up all the potatoes in the shop. During this period, they had to go up the mountain a few times to get more before they had enough. Can I meet the owner of this shop? Dongfang Lin whispered after some thought. I'm sorry, my master is not seeing guests. The waiter refused without even thinking. But I really have something to see her for. It's very important. Dong Fonglin emphasized, who knew that after the waiter heard his words, his originally calm face revealed a trace of ridicule. Then he heard the waiter reply, Your Excellency, not to mention that my master won't see you. Even if he does, you'll have to pay for the meal first. Don't worry, I won't go back on my word on the meal. Dong Fonglin's face burned when he heard this. Damn it, even though he wanted to get close to Lung Ruoxue and fight for a free meal, this waiter was so direct and had said it without giving him any face. He was really ashamed. Woo! When had he ever done such an embarrassing thing? Dong Fonglin wanted to cry but had no tears. Then he gave his subordinates a look, hoping that they would take over the matter. However, when his two subordinates heard the price, they were dumbfounded. They did not know how to react when they saw Dong Fonglin's look. In the end, the furious Dong Fonglin had no choice but to kick his subordinate under the table. He then gritted his teeth. You two pay for the meal. Damn it! Did he have to make it so clear? When the two subordinates heard this, their faces instantly turned pale. They didn't bring that much money. The waiter was already impatient when he saw them pushing each other around. Then he heard the two subordinates tell Dong Fonglin that he didn't have that much money on him. The waiter was annoyed at once. You guys dared to eat so much without money? The waiter roared angrily. In an instant, the eyes of all the guests in the hall were drawn over. When Dong Fonglin saw this, his entire face flushed red, and he wanted to find a hole to hide in. Don't worry, we won't renege on our debt. Dong Fonglin's face was red, and his voice was as soft as a mosquito. In that case, quickly pay for the meal. The waiter urged. That. Do you only accept top-grade crystals? Do you accept anything else? Dong Fonglin asked tentatively. Top-grade crystals were not cabbages, and they couldn't possibly carry so many on them. Besides, he didn't have the habit of carrying money. After all, he would bring one or two subordinates with him wherever he went. However, it was impossible for his subordinates to carry so many top-grade crystals with them. Yes, but we don't accept trash. We don't want it if it's not in our eyes. The waiter thought for a moment and said. Dong Fonglin was instantly relieved when he heard this. Although he didn't have any top-grade crystals on him, he believed that he still had some good things with him. At least, it should be enough to pay for the meal. Don't worry, you'll definitely be satisfied with what I have. Dong Fonglin let out a long sigh of relief. Since that's the case, let's go upstairs and set the price. After the waiter finished speaking, he directly led Dong Fonglin and the other two to a private room upstairs. In the private room, Chengwu had been paying attention to the situation downstairs. When he saw the waiter bringing 3 people up, he did not show any surprise on his face. Instead, he looked as if it was a matter of course. Because whenever there was an emergency, the waiters would bring them to him and let him handle it. Chengwu looked at Dong Fonglin, who was blushing, and smiled. Please take a seat, the 3 of you. Thank you. Dong Fonglin expressed his thanks and sat down. Why aren't you guys sitting? Glancing at the 2 people who were still standing, Chengwu casually asked. Well, just stand. The 2 of them quickly said. They had always felt that they had made a big mistake and ate too much, so they didn't dare to sit down. Besides, their lord was still here. If his lord didn't say anything, they wouldn't dare to sit. Chengwu did not force them when he saw their reaction. Then, he turned to look at Dong Fonglin and said, Sir, do you not have enough money? Yes. We left home in a hurry, so we didn't bring too much money with us. I hope you can forgive us. Dong Fonglin's face was filled with embarrassment. In fact, he didn't expect the food here to be so expensive, and they had eaten so much, so it was a tragedy. It's okay. Everyone has times when they can't make ends meet. However, you still have to pay. Chengwu laughed. Of course. So, I want to use something to pay off the debt. Dong Fonglin said gloomily. Sure, but we'll decide the price. Chengwu reminded. What you say? Isn't it at the market price? Hearing this, Dong Fonglin asked in surprise. Although he had lived for a long time, he had very little experience in haggling. Therefore, for a moment he had become a lost little lamb. Chengwu's words had also made him feel a little uncomfortable. To put it bluntly, he was not used to it. How is that possible? Chengwu's smile was very friendly. However, his words made Dongfeng Lin feel that he was definitely a vampire. However, he had too little experience in this area. Hence, he was no match for the wily and cunning Cheng Wu. After a few rounds, Dongfeng Lin was defeated. The items that he had taken out, including the best fire ginseng that was close to 1,000 years old, had all been belittled by Cheng Wu. In addition, while he was trying to attack him, Cheng Wu had also taken out the same items in his hands to compare with those he had. After comparing them, Dongfeng Lin and the other two were all silent, because they really had nothing to say. This was too much of a bully. Everything in the other party's hands was priceless and couldn't be bought even with money. What's the point of competing? For a moment, Dongfeng Lin really wanted to kill him and take his treasure. However, he was only thinking about it casually. He was clear that this Yao clan building belonged to Lung Ruoxue. If he really touched her people, that girl would definitely kill him without a second word. After a series of blows, Dongfeng Lin had no choice but to agree to the price that Cheng Wu had set for his items. However, after calculating everything, he found out that all of his items had only been discounted to 15,000 top-grade crystals. He was still short of 5,000. What should he do? Dongfeng Lin looked at his two dumbfounded subordinates, and was even more at a loss. Wu. He looked pitifully at Cheng Wu without saying a word. In the end, Cheng Wu could no longer bear his resentful gaze and suggested, "Why don't you three stay here and work?" Work? Dongfeng Lin's eyes widened in disbelief. Yup. I provide food and accommodation, 2 days off a month, and the pay is 5 top-grade crystal stones a month. If the business is good, there will be a bonus and pills. Cheng Wu said with a smile. He had already seen that the person in front of him had extraordinary strength, so he really didn't mind having such an expert in the store. 5 pieces of high-grade crystal stones a month. They owed the other party 5,000 top-grade crystal stones. With this conversion, how long would the three of them have to work here? Dongfeng Lin wasn't the only one who was trying to settle the score. His two subordinates were doing the same thing. However, in the end, the three of them burst into tears because they realized that they couldn't count. It seemed like they would have to work here for a long time. As for how long it would take, none of the three of them could calculate. How is it? Stay and work. I'll pay you back very soon. Cheng Wu tried to entice him. His eyes were sparkling as he looked at Dongfeng Lin, as if he was looking at a money tree. All right. However, can I meet Lung Ruoxue first? Dongfeng Lin compromised. In fact, he could also arrange for a subordinate to go home and withdraw the money, but this matter would be exposed if he did so. However, he really did not want too many people to know about such an embarrassing matter. After all, he was just working to pay off his debts, and time would pass very quickly. After all, to gods, 1,000 years was just the blink of an eye. Hearing Dongfeng Lin agree, Cheng Wu's gaze towards him became even gentler. However, he could not make the decision to see his own miss. At the thought of this, Cheng Wu said, "You should work to pay off your debts first. Young Miss doesn't have a good impression of people who owe her a debt. We can talk about this later." All right then. Dongfeng Lin had no choice but to agree. Just like that, Dongfeng Lin and his two subordinates began their career. Naturally, Cheng Wu would not hide such a thing from Lung Ruoxue and the others. After hearing Cheng Wu's description, Uncle Long rushed in front of him and asked, "What did you say that person's name was?" Chapter 2151. Then you still dare to come? 1. He told me his name is Dongfeng Lin. Why? Was there a problem? Could he be a spy sent by Lord Cheng's residence? I'll chase him away. Cheng Wu saw Uncle Long's agitated reaction, and said angrily. However, he changed his mind and said, "No. He still owes us money for our meal. Even if we want to chase him away, we have to wait for him to pay for the meal." Upon hearing this, several black lines slid down Uncle Long's forehead. He couldn't help but secretly complain. This brat is really into money. But this is also good. Only a man like this can run the house. Kid, he wasn't sent by the Divine Master's estate, but he's related to them. Uncle Long said with a mysterious expression. Then we'll really have to chase him away. Cheng Wu said. No. He can't be chased out because he's Sir Yes subordinate. Uncle Long said hurriedly. This brat was really impatient. He didn't even let him finish speaking, causing the sense of mystery he had accumulated for a long time to be wasted. What? Uncle Long's words left everyone dumbfounded. Uncle Long, are you sure? Lung Ruoxue confirmed. I'm very sure. Uncle Long nodded heavily. Then, he explained Dongfang Lin's identity and his relationship with Dongfang Yu in detail. No wonder he said he wanted to see Miss. Cheng Wu mumbled to himself after hearing this. Miss, will you see him? Cheng Wu asked. He's gone. Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. Lung Ruoxue's answer left everyone dumbfounded once again. Upon seeing their expressions, Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly and said, He didn't tell me that he was master's subordinate. And he also owes our Yao clan house money. Even if we want to see him, we should wait until he pays back the money first. What do you think? What Shuer said makes sense. The master of the Ning family said first. And girl, don't be in a hurry to see him. Let him suffer a little first. Song suggested. Should we tell Bingyao and Qingyang about this? Uncle Long couldn't help but ask when he heard everyone's opinions and his ideas. You can tell them, but don't let them go to Dongfang Lin now. Lung Ruoxue said after some thought. Oh, go and talk to them. Cheng Wu volunteered. With that he left. Not long after, Bingyao and Qingyang, who had heard the news, came out of the room as expected. When he saw Lung Ruoxue, Bingyao said excitedly, Shuer, has Dongfang Lin really come? He didn't dare to believe what he had just heard, so he needed to confirm it. He would only believe it if he heard it from Lung Ruoxue. Someone called Dongfang Lin did come. However, he's currently working at the Yao clan, so I'm not sure if he's master's subordinate. Lung Ruoxue said calmly. It shouldn't be wrong. Bingyao said. Then he looked at Lung Ruoxue carefully and said, Shuer, I've seen Dongfang Lin before. Do you want me to confirm it? Sure, but don't let him find out. I don't want to see him now. Lung Ruoxue warned. Don't worry. I won't let him find out. Bingyao promised and then left the Lung family's main residence with Qingyang. Seeing the two of them leave, Uncle Long asked curiously, Shuer, go and take a look too. Uncle Long, you can just look at the screen. There's no need to go to the Yao family building to look. Lung Ruoxue helplessly reminded them. They had all treated the light screen as mere decoration. Hee. How could I have forgotten about the light screen? Uncle Long said with some embarrassment. After he finished speaking, he immediately ran to the light screen while the others followed behind. However, Lung Ruoxue, the demon and Song were still sitting in their original seats. After confirming, Master Ning quickly returned to Lung Ruoxue's side and said, Shuer, it's really him. Aren't you going to take a look? I'm not going. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. Actually, she knew it was him. Song and Qingju had both confirmed it with her through voice transmission. However, so what if it was him? She didn't know Dongfang Lin and didn't know why he had come. So she naturally wouldn't take the initiative to offer herself. It's fine if you don't want to see him. There's nothing special about Dongfang Lin. But Shuer, do you really plan to see him after he pays off the money he owes the Yao clan? That'll probably take a long time. The master of the Ning family said with some sympathy. He pitied Dongfang Lin. He wondered if Shuer's refusal to see him counted as taking her anger out on him. After all, Master Ye's subordinates had not performed well in front of Shuer. It's only right and proper to pay back what you owe. Moreover, time is nothing to gods. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. That's what you say, but I believe that Dongfang Lin will definitely be depressed. The master of the Ning family said with certainty. That's his business. Who asked him to eat so many dishes? And those were the cheapest ones in the Yao family building. If it was the most expensive one, he would probably have to sell himself to the Yao clan for the rest of his life. Lung Ruoxue laughed and teased. Hee. If he can really work for us for the rest of his life, then we'll be in for it. The master of the Ning family laughed evilly. If Godfather wants him to work for the Yao clan for the rest of his life, isn't that easy? Lung Ruoxue laughed. You have a way? Upon hearing this, Master Ning's eyes lit up, and he looked at Lung Ruoxue with anticipation. The items in the Yao clan are all very expensive. If he accidentally breaks one or two of them, I'm afraid he'll have to stay in the Yao clan for the rest of his life. Lung Ruoxue reminded. That makes sense. The master of the Ning family was stunned for a moment before he spoke. However, his sympathy for Dongfang Lin grew even deeper. Although he was the one who had started the conversation, he didn't expect Schwer to take it seriously. At this moment, Song, who was in Lung Ruoxue's arms, raised her head and said indifferently, "Girl, leave this to me. I promise he'll pay so much that he won't even be able to wear his underwear." After saying that, he disappeared in a flash. Senior Tsong is really a man of action. The master of the Ning family couldn't help wiping the cold sweat on his forehead. The sympathy he felt for Dongfang Lin had already turned into a torrential river that flowed endlessly. What bad things have you guys done this time? At this time, Uncle Long also came back and glanced at the strange face of the master of the Ning family, asking curiously, "I didn't do anything bad. It's just that I wanted Dongfang Lin to work at the Yao clan tower for the rest of his life, so Senior Tsong went to carry out this task." The master of the Ning family told the truth. After he finished speaking, he felt cold sweat flowing down his body. Let him work in the Yao clan building for the rest of his life. This was a good idea. Dongfang Lin's intelligence is well known in the divinity. Ao Jia, who happened to be walking over, heard this and expressed his opinion. After hearing this, Uncle Long pondered for a moment and said, that's a good idea. However, Dongfang Lin isn't easy to fool. If we use force, he might not yield. Uncle Long, don't worry. Song has a way. Lung Ruoxue said confidently. Chapter 2152. Then you still dare to come? 2. Hearing her words, Uncle Long and the others didn't have anything to worry about. However, Dongfang Lin didn't realize at all that he was about to be tricked. At the same time, Bing Yao and Qin Yang, who had left the Lung family's main residence, had also arrived at the foot of the Yao family building. However, they had promised Schwer that they would not be discovered by Dongfang Lin, so they walked to the front of the Yao family building and took a disguise pill. As soon as the two of them walked into the Yao family building, they saw Dongfang Lin standing in the middle of the hall, wearing a very comical apron to welcome guests. The two of them tried their best not to laugh out loud, but they were already laughing inside. When Dongfang Lin saw the two of them, he didn't doubt them. He immediately came up to them with a red face and said, "This way, please." At this moment, Dongfang Lin was in an extremely awkward position because his current position was the same as the waiter who had received him before. However, after he arrived, this position belonged to him. Furthermore, because he was very restrained in the beginning, Cheng Wu thought of this method to let him stand in the Yao family building's main hall with this image, so that he could train his own face and avoid being embarrassed. As a result, he was in for a tragedy. Not only did he have to receive many guests every day, but he also had to endure the strange looks from everyone. This was an experience that he had never experienced before. It could be considered a novel experience. However, he really didn't want this kind of novel experience. Who could save him? Dongfang Lin howled at the sky in his heart, but he couldn't delay his work. More importantly, Cheng Wu had said that as a member of the service industry, he had to maintain a perfect and friendly smile when he was working. Therefore, although his face was a little stiff, he could not lack a smile. When they saw Dongfang Lin's mouth twitch into an ugly smile, Bing Yao and Qin Yang didn't know what to say. Well, Dongfang Lin looked quite pitiful, but now wasn't the time to pity him. Otherwise, they might be blamed for his anger. Thinking of Tsong, the two of them chose to stay out of this world. Who asked that guy to be so wild and violent? What do you two want to eat? Dongfang Lin asked mechanically after the two of them were seated. I'll have a plate of hot and sour potato strips. The two of them glanced at the menu and ordered the cheapest dish. After all, the two of them were not here to eat. It would be embarrassing if they left without eating anything, so they could only reluctantly order one. Unfortunately, they did not know that Dongfang Lin had a deep hatred for hot and sour shredded potatoes. Otherwise, they would definitely not have ordered this dish. As expected, Dongfang Lin's face immediately darkened when he heard those words. Then, without even saying a word, he left without looking back. Seeing this, Bing Yao and Qin Yang were puzzled. They didn't say anything to make the other unhappy, did they? Why did the other party give them such a hard time? At this moment, another waiter walked up to them and said with an apologetic face, "I'm sorry, he's new here and hasn't gotten into his zone yet. I hope you don't mind if he's been rude." The one who spoke was the waiter who had received Dongfeng Lin. "It doesn't matter. We can understand," Bing Yao quickly said after hearing the waiter's words. He couldn't help but think to himself, it would be strange if that guy could enter the state. That's good. In order to compensate the two of you, we'll give you this dish for free today. I hope you enjoy your meal," the waiter said with a smile. The smile on his face was unusually warm, like a spring breeze that warmed people's hearts. The waiter then turned around and left. He then went to find Dongfeng Lin and told him the news. Dongfeng Lin was dumbfounded when he heard this. Then he suppressed his anger and asked, "On what basis? Where did I not do well? Why are you putting the blame on me again?" He was very angry because this was not the first time. Every time the waiter gave someone a free meal, he would find him and tell him in private. The consequence of the free meal was that he would bear all the debts and he would have to pay for it. Your service attitude is bad, and you dare to give the customers a hard time. How many times do I have to tell you? We are in the service industry. You have to treat guests like family, but you. The customer didn't say anything bad, but once you heard that someone ordered the hot and sour shredded potato, you immediately changed your face. As usual, which customer would dare to come? The reputation that our Yao clan has built up with great difficulty cannot be destroyed in your hands. So it's not an injustice for you to pay for this loss, right? The waiter told the truth and reason. I'm advising you. Don't always hold grudges against the shredded potatoes. After all the vegetables in the past had already entered your stomachs. If you want to blame someone, blame your greedy mouths. What does it have to do with the shredded potatoes? He was eaten by you, and now he has to take the blame for you. How wronged would that be? The waiter continued, not giving Dongfeng Lin any chance to speak. After hearing all this, Dongfeng Lin couldn't refute it at all. This fact made Dongfeng Lin very depressed. However, after saying all this, the waiter immediately turned around and left. Before he left, he carefully reminded Dongfeng Lin and the other two, and warned them that if they did not do a good job, their money would be deducted. As for the dishes that Bing Yao and Qin Yang had ordered, they naturally didn't need Dongfeng Lin to deliver them. As soon as the waiter left, Dongfeng Lin's two subordinates immediately put on bitter faces and looked at Dongfeng Lin pitifully. "My lord, how long will we have to do this? I'm peeling potatoes so much that I'm about to throw up." The potatoes had piled up into a mountain in front of them, and they had been peeling them for a few days. They really didn't want to continue living like this. "What nonsense are you talking about? Hurry up and get to work. As long as you pay off the money you owe, we can leave." Dongfeng Lin heard his subordinates' complaints and quickly reproached him. In fact, he also wanted to leave. However, they could not leave just like that. Otherwise, how would he be able to face Lung Ruoxua in the future? Hence, he could only endure it. He even held on to a glimmer of hope that he might meet Lung Ruoxua if he stayed here. He felt a little better thinking about this. At this time, one of his subordinates suggested, "Master, if this really doesn't work, I'll go back and withdraw the money. We don't want to work here anymore." "Withdraw money? What are you going to say when you go back? We owe them money for their meals. Is this something to be proud of?" Hearing this, Dongfeng Lin's eyes immediately widened. If he wanted people to know about this, he would have told them to go back and get the money. However, he didn't want too many people to know about such an embarrassing thing. So he would rather work here to pay off his debts. That. The subordinate was speechless. "Don't do that, hurry up and get to work," Dongfeng Lin urged. Yes. The two subordinates resigned themselves to their fate. If their master was not in a hurry, there was no use in them being anxious. Moreover, it was really embarrassing to eat without money to pay. Following that, Dongfeng Lin's two subordinates immediately buried their heads in their work. Chapter 2153. You still dare to come here? 3. At this moment, another waiter walked up to Dongfeng Lin and pointed at him. Come with me to the storeroom to get some plates. Moving plates? Dongfang Lin blinked in confusion. Why are you moving plates? Are there not enough plates? Besides, a small thing like moving plates doesn't need 2 people, right? He was very puzzled, but he still followed the waiter. The waiter brought Dongfang Lin to the storeroom and pointed at the small mountain of plates that took up more than half of the storeroom. You should check the plates first. Then we'll take them out together. Oh, Dongfang Lin nodded. This was very easy. He could find out the number with a sweep of his divine sense. However, when he wanted to use his divine sense, he found that his divine sense was restricted. He couldn't use his divine sense here. This fact puzzled him no matter how much he thought about it. I can't use my divine sense here? Dongfang Lin turned around and asked with a puzzled expression. We cannot. Otherwise, I wouldn't have called you here to help. The waiter said calmly. I see. After hearing the waiter's explanation, Dongfang Lin's question finally had an answer. Then he resigned himself to his fate and began to count the plates. After an unknown amount of time, Dongfang Lin began to feel a little dizzy. At this moment, he was the only one left in the storeroom. As for the waiter who had come with him, he had been called away earlier and had not returned yet, so the task of counting the plates had fallen to him. After counting for so long, he was about to vomit. He had just sat down in the empty space of the warehouse and was about to take a rest when he suddenly heard a crash. He looked up and saw a pile of plates half the height of a man falling down in a magnificent manner, less than half a meter in front of him. All the plates were broken into 2 pieces. Seeing this, Dongfang Lin was dumbfounded. How did this happen? Why did these plates break by themselves? Just as Dongfang Lin was puzzled, the waiter returned. Seeing this, he immediately jumped up in shock and yelled, You actually broke so many plates? As he shouted, a group of people ran in noisily. The group of people looked at the broken plate on the ground. Then all looked at Dongfang Lin with hostility. Dongfang Lin's scalp suddenly went numb. Did they really think that they were the ones who had broken the plate? With that in mind, Dongfang Lin said very indifferently, These plates have nothing to do with me. I didn't break them. Who else could it be? You were the only one here just now. When the waiter heard Dongfang Lin's words, he immediately jumped up and roared in rage. It really wasn't me. Dongfang Lin was really at a loss for words. He felt extremely aggrieved. What the hell was this? Was it because there was no one else here that he had to take the blame? The more Dongfang Lin thought about it, the more indignant he felt. Even when he was being hunted down by the fog, he had never suffered such a grievance. But today, he was experiencing the feeling of being wronged. This feeling was really, who is that? It can't be that the plate broke on its own. The waiter shouted. It really did shatter on its own. Dongfang Lin sighed. However, he had also understood that no one would believe his words. I want to see Steward Chung, he said after some thought. Don't even think about reneging on this matter when you see Steward Chung. The waiter shouted angrily. However, he still brought Dongfang Lin to see Cheng Wu. In the same private room, Cheng Wu and Dongfang Lin were still sitting face to face. After listening to the waiter's report, Cheng Wu remained silent. However, his eyes would occasionally glance at Dongfang Lin, as if waiting for him to speak first. Manager Chung, I really didn't break those plates, I'm not that clumsy. After a long while, Dongfang Lin finally calmed down a little, and began to talk about martial arts with a calm expression. Of course I believe you, but there was no one else in the warehouse at the time. You said you didn't break it, but you have to show some evidence. Otherwise, I won't be able to answer to the higher-ups. Those plates were all made by Miss and our family's armament masters, so logically speaking, they shouldn't be that easy to break, but they just happen to be broken. Moreover, the price of those plates is very expensive, not something ordinary plates can compare to. Do you understand? Cheng Wu said with a faint smile. He was filled with sympathy for Dongfang Lin. If Tsang wanted to scheme against him, how could he escape? Yes. The plate storm that Dongfang Lin had experienced earlier was caused by Tsang. It was self-evident. Evidence? He definitely couldn't. After all, he didn't expect the accident at that time. So how could he have thought of leaving evidence? However, Dongfang Lin could somewhat understand Cheng Wu's words. Following that, he looked at Cheng Wu with a vexed expression and said, I wonder how Steward Cheng plans to deal with this matter? These plates can only be considered as broken by you for the time being. You will compensate for them at a discounted price. When you produce evidence, we can prove your innocence. Cheng Wu said helplessly. Yes, he was helpless. He couldn't understand why the young lady and the others would do something so unnecessary. Wasn't this fellow the subordinate of the young Miss Master? Why did he still scheme against him like this? Wouldn't it be better to just think of a way to take him in? In reality, Lung Ruoxia's actions were largely due to Dongfang and the others' previous actions. This kind of behavior was called taking out her anger on them. Although she didn't teach Dongfang and the others a lesson, it didn't mean that she wasn't angry. Now Dongfang younger brother had come to her door of his own accord. How could she let him go so easily? As for Dongfang Lin, he was unlucky enough to take the blame for Dongfang and the others. However, he didn't know about it yet. After hearing Cheng Wu's explanation, Dongfang Lin could only nod helplessly. There was nothing else he could say. However, he was extremely depressed in his heart. He was unparalleled in his wisdom and resourcefulness, so how did he end up in such a situation today? However, when he heard the price of the plates that Cheng Wu had mentioned, he felt his vision turn black and his mind went blank. His ears were buzzing and he was in a daze. This was because Cheng Wu had said that the broken plates were worth about 500,000 top-grade crystals after a discount. This was even after giving him a 20% discount on account of their good relationship. Otherwise, the price would have been even higher. At this moment, Dongfang Lin really wished he could faint. That way he wouldn't have to face this huge debt. However, after the days, he was unusually clear-headed, and more importantly, a god wouldn't faint so easily. However, the villain in his heart was already beating his chest and stamping his feet in grief and indignation, crying bitterly and shedding tears. Dongfang Lin's part-time career seemed to be far away. However, could he refuse the compensation that the other party asked for? The answer was no. If he really rejected her, he would no longer have the face to appear in front of Lung Ruoxia in the future. Hence, he could only admit that he was unlucky. Time passed. 1 month later, on a certain day, Lung Ruoxia suddenly thought of Dongfang Lin, who was working in the Yao clan's building, so she looked for Cheng Wu to ask. When Lung Ruoxia heard from Cheng Wu that Dongfang Lin's initial uneasiness had turned into his current willingness to do as he pleased, she was very surprised. She did not expect this guy's ability to adapt to things to be so strong. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxia smiled and instructed, "Let Dongfang Lin come here. I'll see him." Yes. When Cheng Wu heard this, he was very happy for Dongfang Lin. After all, the two of them had been getting along quite well during this period of time. Although they were not brothers, they still had a deep friendship. After that, Cheng Wu informed Dongfang Lin of the news. Dongfang Lin patted Cheng Wu's shoulder gratefully and thanked him. Then he impatiently went up the mountain. After entering the Lung family's main residence, he was led to the garden. Dongfang Lin saw a lady sitting opposite him with a single glance. Needless to say, that lady was Lung Ruoxia. Sitting across from the woman was a handsome, noble, and extraordinary man. Dongfang Lin's eyes lit up. This man was the most outstanding one he had ever seen, aside from Master Yu. Then, Dongfang Lin walked up to the two of them and said with a faint smile, "May I ask if you are Miss Lung?" "I'm Dongfang Lin." When Lung Ruoxia heard Dongfang Lin's words, she turned around and nodded her head slightly. Only then did she start to size up Dongfang Lin. Dongfang Lin's appearance was 70% similar to Dongfang Yu's. Both of them were good-looking, tall, sturdy, and had outstanding temperaments. As for strength, although they were both reverent god-level experts, Dongfang Lin was clearly inferior to Dongfang Yu. In an instant, Lung Ruoxia had finished sizing up Dongfang Lin, and came to a conclusion. At the same time, Dongfang Lin was also sizing up Lung Ruoxia. The woman in front of him was indeed devastatingly beautiful, and Lung Ruoxia, who was right in front of him, was obviously more beautiful than what he had seen in the image. She had the aura of a king and her talent was rather demonic. Hence he was very satisfied with Lung Ruoxia. However, he could not understand why there was someone among the people around his big brother who would look down on Lung Ruoxue. After sizing each other up, Lung Ruoxue invited Dongfang Lin to take a seat. I've long heard that Your Excellency Dongfang Lin wants to see me. Is there anything I can help you with? Lung Ruoxue pretended to be confused. Dongfang Yu is my big brother, and am also Master Ye's subordinate. I heard from my big brother that Miss Lung is Master Ye's new disciple, so I thought of coming to see Miss Lung. Although Dongfang Lin did not know if Lung Ruoxue knew his identity, he still answered her directly. Did you know that Dongfang Yu and the others had some disputes with me before? Lung Ruoxue asked with a smile. I know. Dongfang Lin was very honest. And you still dare to come? Aren't you afraid that I'll take the opportunity to make things difficult for you? Lung Ruoxue asked out of curiosity. In reality, she had indeed caused him trouble. This fellow had also been working at the Yao clan building for over a month. Chapter 2154. What are you doing here, one? I'm not afraid. They are them, and I am me. I believe that Miss Lung is not someone who can't distinguish right from wrong. Dongfang Lin said confidently. That's not necessarily true. I'm a vengeful person. Lung Ruoxue said with a half-smile. Dongfang Lin didn't know how to continue the conversation. He could only look at Lung Ruoxue helplessly. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue laughed in her heart. Then she asked, Has Your Excellency Dongfang Lin gotten used to the Yao clan tower? I'm still all right. Dongfang Lin couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat off his forehead and thought, is this considered touching on a sore spot? This was the most embarrassing thing he had ever done in his life. Of course, he was referring to the fact that he did not bring enough money for dinner. Then do a good job. I'll try to pay off my debt as soon as possible and go home. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. I will. Dongfang Lin was very depressed. With just a monthly payment of 5 high-grade crystal stones, who knew how long it would take for him to pay back his debt? He no longer had any confidence, and might have to sell to the Yao clan for the rest of his life. At the thought of this, Dongfang Lin's mind turned and he said, Miss Lung, I wonder if I can change my position? The current job is a bit of a waste of talent for me. Mr. Dongfang Lin, you really don't know what modesty is. Tell me, what position do you want? I'll think about it. Lung Ruoxue glanced at Dongfang Lin and said indifferently. She had heard about Dongfang Lin's intelligence from Uncle Long and the others, so she had no intention of letting him continue working as a waiter. She wouldn't give him what he wanted so easily. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue felt that she was very bad. I can be Miss Lung's think tank and assist Miss Lung in achieving great things. Dongfang Lin quickly said, his expression calm. Do I have something important to do? Lung Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes and pretended to be innocent. Dongfang Lin's words were stuck in his throat because of Lung Ruoxue's innocent expression. After a long while, he took a few deep breaths before he said, Miss Lung, don't you want to avenge Master Yu? With my advice, it'll definitely be like adding wings to a tiger for Miss Lung. Of course, I will avenge my master. But I want to know if you are only representing yourself or Dongfang Yu and the others. Lung Ruoxue asked calmly. One could not tell from her expression that she was happy or angry. She did not seem to be overjoyed by Dongfang Lin's words at all. Seeing this, Dongfang Lin was even more satisfied with Lung Ruoxue. However, this little girl did not seem to be too satisfied with him. This fact gave him a headache and made him feel helpless. I'm representing myself for now, but I'll think of a way to convince my brothers. Dongfang Lin said after some thought. Miss Lung, I am very sincere. It is not entirely because I owe you a huge debt that I made such a decision. In fact, I came to see Miss Lung for this purpose. I just didn't expect that the visit to the Yao family building would cause me to owe a huge amount of money. Therefore, it took me so long to see Miss Lung. Now it seems that I can only use this method to pay off my debt. I hope Miss Lung doesn't mind. Dongfang Lin explained. Seeing Dongfang Lin's sincerity, Lung Ruoxue's impression of him improved a lot. Her attitude also softened a lot. She smiled at Dongfang Lin and said, Since you have this intention, I will certainly fulfill your wish. However, if Dongfang Yu and the others are really unwilling, you don't have to force them. I don't lack those people by my side. I understand. Dongfang Lin nodded. It seemed like Leng Ruoxue was someone who could clearly distinguish between kindness and hatred. He then stood up and bowed to Leng Ruoxue. He said respectfully, "This subordinate greets the young master." He had addressed Leng Ruoxue as young master, which meant that he had acknowledged her status and considered himself a subordinate. In fact, Dongfang Lin had already planned to do so before he came. However, he would only make his decision after meeting Leng Ruoxue. He had not mentioned this to anyone before he came. Now that he had met Leng Ruoxue, he was very satisfied with her, and was willing to assist a young master like her in taking revenge for Master Yu. Hence, in order to make his stand clear, he immediately made his stand clear. As for his elder brother and the others, he still had to find a way to convince them. No need to be so polite, Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Dongfang Lin was a sensible person. It's what I should do. I can't abandon my etiquette. Dongfang Lin was very insistent on this. After all, he would not be the only one by Leng Ruoxue's side in the future. It was better to follow the rules, in case some people didn't take Leng Ruoxue seriously and things would get messy. There's no need to do this in private. Leng Ruoxue compromised when she saw Dongfang Lin's stubbornness. Yes, young master. Dongfang Lin nodded and then sat down again. Following that, Leng Ruoxue introduced the evildoer to him. Of course, she did not reveal the identity of the evildoer. After that, she sent someone to invite Uncle Long and the rest out. Bing Yao and Qin Yang could finally see Dongfang Lin in the open. They were both very happy. After all, they were old friends and had many common topics. However, Dongfang Lin was a smooth person. In a short time he had become very friendly with everyone and even talked about everything. After chatting for a long time, Dongfang Lin finally bid farewell to Bing Yao and the others reluctantly, and returned to the Yao family house at the foot of the mountain. After Dongfang Lin left, Uncle Long asked Leng Ruoxue in a low voice, "Little girl, Dongfang Lin is not bad. He's much stronger than those people. Uncle Long, are you satisfied with him?" Leng Ruoxue said. "Of course I'm satisfied. Back then, with Dongfang Lin's identity and status, it was not easy for me to meet him. I didn't expect to be so close to him now." Uncle Long said excitedly. Back then his strength was not bad. Although he had a little fame, he was still far from being comparable to the brothers Dongfang Lin and Dongfang Yu. These two people could be considered as his idols. Of course, their position in his heart was definitely not as high as Master Yu. Yup. I didn't expect that either. The master of the Ning family also said emotionally. When Leng Ruoxue saw their excited expressions, she smiled helplessly. "Uncle Long, godfather, calm down. He's one of us from now on. Are you afraid that you won't have a chance to get to know him?" "Ehe. We were too excited. However, Dongfang Lin does have better eyes than his big brother. He can see the good in Shui. Uncle Long praised. "It's not that Dongfang Yu didn't see it. It's just that the people around him aren't too satisfied with me and don't want to be under me." Leng Ruoxue was well aware of this. I wonder how Dongfang Lin is going to convince Dongfang Yu and the others. Uncle Long was looking forward to it. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue thought to herself. Actually, from her perspective, Dongfang Yu was still easy to convince. It was just that some people on his side were more stubborn. It seemed like she had to kill the chicken to warn the monkeys. Chapter 2155. What are you doing here, too? With this thought in mind, when Dongfang Lin told her that he wanted to make a trip back to Black Fog City, Leng Ruoxue immediately decided to bring the demon, Song, and Uncle Long with him. The master of the Ning family and the rest would stay at home to keep watch. Along the way, Leng Ruoxue felt two extremely unfriendly gazes following her. When she turned her head, those two gazes immediately disappeared. However, she was very clear who those gazes belonged to. At the thought of this, Leng Ruoxue smiled at Dongfang Lin and said, "Lin, why don't your two subordinates continue working at the Yao family building? Otherwise, when will you be able to pay off the money you owe?" A few drops of cold sweat rolled down Dongfang Lin's forehead when he heard this. He wanted to cry, but had no tears in his heart. Could you not mention this? It wasn't easy for her to take leave and go home. So why did she have to remind him of this? Dongfeng Lin was very depressed. He looked at Lung Ruoxue with a wronged expression and did not say anything. However, before he could express his opinion, his two subordinates could not help but jump out. Humph. It was just that little bit of money. I'll return it to you when we return to Black Fog City. One of the subordinates shouted angrily. However, with his master here, he still restrained himself. But even so, Dongfeng Lin's head still hurt when he heard him say this. Damn it. How dare he say such words in front of Lung Ruoxue? Shut up. Is there a place for you to speak? Dongfeng Lin's eyes swept over the subordinate as he reproached. The subordinate's heart trembled at these words, and he immediately fell silent. Lin am very democratic. Since your subordinates have something against me, let them say it. Don't stop them. I still want to hear what they have to say. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. There's no need for that, right? Dongfeng Lin said fearfully. If Lung Ruoxue were to hear their inner thoughts and dissatisfaction, they would be in deep trouble. Even though he had not spent much time with Lung Ruoxue, he was clear that this girl would definitely seek revenge for every single flaw. It's necessary. As a leader, it's important to listen to the opinions of the people below. This is beneficial to the leader. Lung Ruoxue said with a faint smile. Then, her beautiful eyes turned to her two silent subordinates. However, after receiving Dongfeng Lin's warning, they didn't dare to speak carelessly anymore. Lung Ruoxue was a little disappointed. Then, everyone continued on their way. On a certain night, Lung Ruoxue and the rest were camping in the wilderness as usual. Of course, the few of them stayed in the house that she always carried with her. However, in the middle of the night, it suddenly started to rain heavily. They had not rested yet, so they sat in the garden and listened to the sound of the rain. At this moment, rustling sounds could be heard from the rain. Lung Ruoxue and the rest immediately went on high alert. Then, everyone saw that the sky above the transparent roof was covered by a dark Massachusetts. So many snakes. One of Dongfeng Lin's subordinates exclaimed. He could feel his hair standing on end, because he hated snakes the most. Where did all these snakes come from? Dongfeng Lin's scalp went numb when he saw the black python flicking its tongue. He especially saw the red light that flashed across the giant snake's cold black eyes from time to time. He felt even more disgusted with these snakes, because they were obviously being controlled by someone. He just didn't know whether these snakes were coming for him or Lung Ruoxue. But no matter who it was, they seemed to be in trouble. Don't worry about them, they can't get in. Lung Ruoxue glanced at the giant python on the roof, and said calmly, They can't get in, but we can't get out either. Another subordinate reminded, What if I say we can get out? Lung Ruoxue looked at the subordinate with a smile that was not a smile. Then hurry up and get out. It's no joke to be treated as a meal by these snakes. Moreover, these snakes are obviously poisonous. The subordinate continued. After he finished speaking, he glanced at the triangular heads of the snakes on the roof, and broke out in cold sweat again. It's raining so heavily outside. Are you sure you want to go out now? Lung Ruoxue raised her brows and asked. Well, let's wait until the rain stops tomorrow. The subordinate looked at the sky and said with a lingering fear. At this time, a bolt of lightning struck from the sky outside, accompanied by thunder. Instantly he was so scared that he quivered and his face turned pale. This subordinate of yours is quite timid. Lung Ruoxue replied indifferently. Then she continued. It's getting late, everyone should rest early. With that, Lung Ruoxue pulled the evildoer away. Seeing this, Uncle Long also returned to his room. After they left, only Tsang, Dongfeng Lin, and his two subordinates were left in the garden. However, at this moment, Dongfeng Lin was still not aware of Tsang's identity, and no one had told him about it. Hence, in his eyes, Tsang was just a cute little beast. Especially now that Tsang had transformed into a little rabbit who was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Dongfeng Lin only treated it as Lung Ruoxue's pet. After holding Tsang in his arms and stroking its soft fur, Dongfeng Lin said to his two subordinates with great dissatisfaction. What an embarrassment! You're even more timid than a girl. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have brought you guys along. My lord. His two subordinates felt very wronged, but Dongfeng Lin didn't really want to see them at this moment. He immediately snapped. Disappear from my sight immediately. I don't want to see you now. Yes. The two subordinates replied gloomily, then left the garden. After they left, Song's bright eyes kept looking at Dongfeng Lin, making him feel uncomfortable. To be honest, he was not very familiar with this little rabbit because most of the time, it was in Lung Ruoxia's arms. However, Yichen seemed to be very dissatisfied with it, and would stare at it when he had nothing to do. This was why this rabbit had attracted its interest. How much courage and guts did it take to fight for her master's fiancé's favor? Little fellow, what nonsense are you thinking in your heart? Azure said in a displeased tone as he sensed Dongfeng Lin's thoughts. Are you talking to me? Dongfeng Lin was a little overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. This was the first time the rabbit had spoken to him. However, why did it call him little fellow? This form of address made him extremely depressed. Nonsense. If I'm not talking to you, am I talking to a ghost? Don't you see that there are other people here? I really don't know how you became famous back then. I really couldn't tell how smart you were. Song started to despise him. Song's sharp words left Dongfeng Lin dumbfounded. He didn't know how to continue. It seemed like this rabbit didn't like him. After a long time, only then did Dongfeng Lin come up with the words. That little rabbit, can you not call me little guy? You're the little guy, okay? As for Lung Ruoxia's pet, he had to love her as much as he loved her. At least, that was what he thought. Otherwise, if this little beast were to insult him in front of Lung Ruoxia, who would he cry to? Therefore, he did not dare to offend this rabbit. Chapter 2156. What are you doing here? 3. From this point of view, he was smarter than Dongfeng Yu and the others. He also knew how to judge the situation. To put it bluntly, he would not look down on others and bully others. I'm not a little fellow, so don't call me little rabbit, please call me Tsang. Azure corrected. Alright. Tsang. I'm not a little guy either. I've lived for a long time. Dongfeng Lin reminded. As long as the master you in your heart. Azure asked indifferently. That's definitely not the case. Dongfeng Lin quickly said. Then that's it. I was born right after that idiot you, so do you think I can call you little guy? Azure continued to ask. If that's the case, you can really call me that. However, Master Yu is not an idiot, so you can't call him that. Dongfeng Lin said disapprovingly. In his heart, no one could replace the position of Master Yu. Therefore, he would never allow anyone to talk about Master Yu like this. Furthermore, what made him feel strange was that if it was anyone else who dared to talk about Master Yu like this, he would have already rushed up to teach that guy a lesson. But why was his heart so calm when it was this little rabbit's turn? This shouldn't be the case. He could not understand. I always call him that in front of him. Azure said disapprovingly. Hearing Tsang's words, Dongfeng Lin was once again speechless. Although he didn't quite believe it, he had no way of verifying it. After all, Master Yu had already passed away many years ago. Forget it, he shouldn't be calculative with a little beast. At most, he would talk to Lung Ruoxia in private tomorrow, and ask her to take care of her little beast. With this in mind, Dongfeng Lin didn't refute Tsang to prevent the little beast from flying into a rage out of humiliation. The next morning, Dongfeng Lin went to look for Lung Ruoxia as soon as he could, and told her about this matter with a serious expression. After Lung Ruoxia heard this, she did not say anything for a long time. However, the demon beside her said indifferently, Azure is right, you is a big idiot. On this point his thoughts were the same as Tsang's. Hearing this, Dongfeng Lin was a little confused. Did Master Yu offend them? Why were they all like this? Seeing this, Lung Ruoxia smiled helplessly. She had never told Dongfeng Lin about the true identity of Genius and Tsang. Firstly, she had always kept a low profile and did not like to talk about such things. Secondly, she did not wish for the people around Dongfeng Lin to be loyal to her because of Genius and Tsang's identity. Hence, she did not want to reveal her trump card before she had obtained their approval. However, it seemed that it was time for her to reveal a little. Otherwise, if the demon and Song were to reveal their dissatisfaction with her master one day, Dongfang Lin and the others would have a conflict with them because of this. That was not something she wanted to see either. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue glanced at Dongfang Lin and said calmly, "Lin, Song's identity is a bit special. If this was said by someone else, I wouldn't let it go. However, Song has this qualification." Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, even if Dongfang Lin had thousands of questions, he could not ask them. After all, if Lung Ruoxue was willing to tell him, she would tell him even if he did not ask. But now, it seemed like Lung Ruoxue had no intention of telling him. Therefore, he didn't want to be nosy. Immediately, Dongfang Lin took the initiative to change the topic. "Alright, Schwerer, there seems to be more and more snakes gathering outside. Should we wait for a while before we attack, or should we go out and deal with them now? Have breakfast before going," Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. "Alright," he said. Dongfang Lin nodded. After spending time with Lung Ruoxue these few days, he knew that she was very particular about food. She had to eat all 3 meals a day. Thus, he had also benefited a lot from her. Recently, he had been eating so much that he had forgotten about home. Hence, he was 100% in favor of Lung Ruoxue's suggestion. After breakfast, Lung Ruoxue calmly pulled the demon to the garden to rest. Their relaxed and indifferent appearance made Dongfang Lin's 2 subordinates anxious. However, they did not dare to speak rashly after being warned by Dongfang Yao. After a long while, Lung Ruoxue stood up and said to everyone present, "Let's go out and deal with those giant pythons." With that, Lung Ruoxue took out a few antidotes and distributed them to the crowd. Then she pulled the evildoer and left the garden. The moment she opened the door, Lung Ruoxue could smell a stench coming from the room. The ground in front of her was covered with black pythons wriggling about. The roof and the nearby trees were also covered with pythons. At this moment, these pythons were sticking out their half-foot-long wicks and staring at them with a pair of cold red eyes. It was indeed a disgusting sight. Not only that, but these giant pythons were also shrouded in a light gray mist, which dyed the sky dark. This mist was the poison released by the giant pythons. All of a sudden, a thick black tail came flying towards Lung Ruoxue and the demon. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue sent out a wind blade and sliced the thick tail into 2. The other half of the tail fell to the ground and wriggled. It quickly became a delicacy that the giant pythons fought over. The giant python that had its tail cut off was even more embarrassed and angry. It flicked its tongue and pounced towards Lung Ruoxue. Upon seeing this, Lung Ruoxue did not hesitate to reveal her natal flame. The moment that tiny flame appeared, the furious giant python actually had an instinctive reaction to retreat. However, it could not help but charge towards Lung Ruoxue. In the blink of an eye, the giant python that had stuck its head out was burned to ashes by Lung Ruoxue's natal flames. Following that, Lung Ruoxue's fair hand gently waved and the flames instantly jumped onto the giant pythons on the ground. The giant pythons did not even have the time to cry out in alarm before they were turned into ashes. Seeing this, Dongfang Lin's 2 subordinates' mouths were half open in disbelief. This is too amazing. Following that, they saw Lung Ruoxue giving the same treatment to the giant pythons on the trees and on the roof. They were instantly turned into ashes. Instantly, the 2 of them looked at Lung Ruoxue with respect. For the rest of the journey, the 2 of them listened to Lung Ruoxue's every word, and were even more attentive to her than to Dongfang Lin. This could be considered a pleasant surprise for Lung Ruoxue. She had never thought that by eliminating the giant pythons controlled by someone, she could win the hearts of these 2 people. In reality, Dongfang Lin's 2 subordinates' reaction was normal. One should know that in the firmament, only the strong were respected. Lung Ruoxue's performance when she dealt with the giant python had deeply shocked the 2 of them. Hence, they immediately changed their attitude and acknowledged Lung Ruoxue. Previously, they were not willing to submit to Lung Ruoxue, mostly because they did not believe in her strength. They felt that she was a woman, and had only cultivated for a short time. Even if she was the Master Yes disciple, they did not believe that Lung Ruoxue had the qualifications to lead them to avenge Master Yu. In addition, the people around Dongfang Yu were dissatisfied with Lung Ruoxue, which more or less affected them. It was precisely because of this preconceived notion that they had such a contemptuous attitude towards Lung Ruoxue. But now, the two of them were completely convinced by Lung Ruoxue. She was indeed Master Yes' disciple. As expected, he was intrepid. After this incident, Lung Ruoxue understood one thing more clearly. If she wanted to subdue them, she could only use violence. Whatever affinity, favorable impression, and the like were useless in front of these people. They only believed in their fists. With such an understanding, Lung Ruoxue had a plan for what she was going to do next. Black Fog City is up ahead, Dongfeng Lin said excitedly as he looked at the tall city wall that was just a short distance away. This Black Fog City is so far from the land of demons. Lung Ruoxue sighed. They had been away from home for more than a month, and they had finally reached their destination. It had not been easy. Miss, it's safer to stay away, one of his subordinates hurriedly said. You're right, let's enter the city, Lung Ruoxue said impatiently. Let's go. Dongfeng Lin nodded. Then he led Lung Ruoxue and the rest into Black Fog City. As she walked on the streets of Black Fog City, Lung Ruoxue's beautiful eyes sized up the buildings in the city. She could not help but think to herself, the population in Black Fog City is unusually small. There wasn't even a guard at the city gate, so he wondered if there was a city lord here. Seeing through Lung Ruoxue's thoughts, Dongfeng Lin smiled and said, This Black Fog City is currently without a master. Do you want to make a city master? Don't. Lung Ruoxue rejected. Not only was this place cold, but it was also in a remote location. A normal person would not make this their territory. However, this place was extremely safe. No wonder Dongfeng Lin and his men had been hiding here for so many years without being discovered. It's such a pity. Dongfeng Lin pretended to be disappointed. However, Lung Ruoxue ignored him and started to admire the ice sculptures in the city with great interest. He felt a little helpless when he saw this. His presence was too low. Was actually ignoring him. Dongfeng Lin led the way gloomily. Not long after, Lung Ruoxue and the rest followed him to a small courtyard. Then Lung Ruoxue saw the underground city that Dongfeng Lin had mentioned. What do you think? This place is not bad, right? Dongfeng Lin said proudly when he saw Lung Ruoxue's shocked expression. Lung Ruoxue glanced at the smug Dongfeng Lin and said, It's passable. After she finished speaking, she walked in directly. Dongfeng Lin felt even more depressed when he heard these three words. However, his two heartless subordinates who had been subdued by Lung Ruoxue and became her loyal dogs were secretly laughing in their hearts. It seemed like their master could not do anything to their young lady. At this moment, Dongfeng Lin and the others who had yet to enter the underground castle suddenly heard a cry of alarm. What are you doing here? Chapter 2157. Arrangements. 1. Dongfeng Lin and the others entered the room immediately upon hearing that. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue and Yaoji were staring at each other. Yaoji was still angry and was extremely surprised to see Lung Ruoxue. However, Lung Ruoxue only smiled faintly and didn't say anything. Hey, I'm talking to you. What are you doing here? I didn't expect you to actually find your way here. I've really underestimated you. However, it's useless even if you find us here. We won't easily acknowledge you. Yaoji asked cautiously. She had been brooding over the fact that she had previously offended Lung Ruoxue. But when she saw that Dongfeng Yu and the others did not blame her, she became fearless. She even felt that they might have the same thoughts as her, that they were not willing to lower themselves to be under a little girl, even if she was the Master Yes disciple. In reality, the reason why they didn't value Lung Ruoxue so much was not only because of her young age, but also because they weren't familiar with her. Lung Ruoxue was only accepted as a disciple after Master Yes' death. As a result, her status as a disciple was greatly reduced. Thus, when they first met Lung Ruoxue, they were very dissatisfied with her. In their hearts, the most suitable candidates for the young master position were naturally Bing Yao or Qing Yang. Unfortunately, both of them admitted that they could not take on the heavy responsibility. This made them very angry, so they decided not to choose either of them. At least, That was what Yaoji thought. "I'm not here to find you." Finally, Lung Ruoxue spoke with a faint smile. She was rather helpless about Yaoji's self-confidence. She couldn't understand why her master would have such a brainless woman by his side. However, this brainless woman seemed to be quite loyal to her master. Of course, she might have other thoughts about her master. Moreover, after not seeing her for so many days, Yaoji's scarred face was now smooth and without a trace of scars. It seemed that women really loved beauty. Humph. Who are you trying to fool? If you're not looking for us, then who are you looking for? Yaoji clearly didn't believe Lung Ruoxue's words. When she said this, her beautiful face was filled with mockery. "I was the one who brought her here," Dongfang Lin said indifferently. "You? Sir Dongfang Lin? Why did you bring this woman here?" Yaoji questioned him in dissatisfaction after hearing his words. "Miss Lung is a guest that I invited. Why did I invite her? I don't need you to question me," Dongfang Lin said coldly. He had already discussed with Lung Ruoxue not to let these people know that he had already acknowledged her. This way, it would be easier to observe their reactions. Yaoji's dissatisfaction grew when she heard Dongfang Lin's words. However, she didn't dare to say anything to make him angry when she saw that he didn't look too good. After all, although he looked gentle, he was actually even more difficult to talk to than Dongfang Yu. After saying that, Dongfang Lin made a gesture of invitation and led the calm and composed Lung Ruoxue past Yaoji in a grand manner, entering the inner courtyard of the underground castle. After arranging rooms for Lung Ruoxue and the rest, Dongfang Lin immediately went to see Dongfang Yu. After knocking on Dongfang Yu's door, Dongfang Lin loudly said, "Big brother, I'm back. Ooh, it feels so good to be home. How is it?" Dongfang Yu asked with concern as he looked at his travel-worn younger brother. He didn't expect his younger brother to be gone for so long. "It's all right," Dongfang Lin said with a smile. He would never tell his big brother that he owed Lung Ruoxue a lot of money and had even worked at the Yao clan tower for a month. This was such an embarrassing matter. This matter was really embarrassing. "Lung Ruoxue didn't chase you out?" Dongfang Yu raised his eyebrows and asked again. "No, I didn't." "Who am I? I'm such a gentle, elegant, and handsome man. She can't wait to welcome me. How can she drive me out? She even came here with me. Of course, I'm the one who invited her here," Dongfang Lin said shamelessly. He didn't feel ashamed at all when he said this. Instead, he was very calm. However, Dongfang Yu's face was filled with disbelief when he heard his words. When he heard that Lung Ruoxue was here as well, he stood up from his chair and said in disbelief, "Lung Ruoxue is here too?" "Yup. I brought her here, but we met Yaoji the moment we entered. That woman thought that they were here for her, so she ridiculed them. I guess she must have offended Lung Ruoxue again," Dongfang Lin said with a faint smile. However, his tone revealed a hint of schadenfreude. Moreover, his words were a little exaggerated because the only one who was angry was probably Yaoji. As for Lung Ruoxue, she most likely didn't even care about that woman. That damned Yaoji. Upon hearing Dongfang Lin's words, Dongfang Yu gritted his teeth in anger. Why can't that woman just behave herself? If it weren't for the fact that they had gone through thick and thin together for so many years, how could he have tolerated Yaoji until now? "Big brother, you don't have to be angry for that kind of woman. She has never been content with her place. In the past, she was always jealous of Wu Yan. This is the so-called it's easy to change a country, but it's hard to change a person's nature," Dongfang Lin consoled. Most of the women in the divine realm had a common problem, and that was that they couldn't stand to see women who were more beautiful than themselves. This was mainly caused by their overly inflated self-confidence, especially those women who were stronger. They had the unique thought that they were the only one, and also hoped that all the men in the world would revolve around them. Unfortunately, was this possible? Lung Ruoxue really isn't angry. Dongfang Yu asked worriedly. However, Dongfang Lin's words made him agree with him. "I don't think so. If it were me, I wouldn't be angry with Yaoji either. It's too embarrassing." Dongfang Lin was 200% dissatisfied with Yaoji, especially after witnessing Lung Ruoxue's terrifying combat power. He felt that there was no comparison between Yaoji and Lung Ruoxue at all. The funny thing was that Yaoji had treated Lung Ruoxue as her opponent. It's good that you didn't. Dong Fengyu was relieved. Big brother, do you want to meet Lung Ruoxue? Hearing his big brother's seemingly bitter words, Dong Fenglin probed. Will she see me? Dong Fengyu was a little embarrassed. The last time, they were chased out by Lung Ruoxue. He had lived for so long, but this was the first time he had such an experience. Hee. I can help you ask. Dong Fenglin chuckled to himself when he saw Dong Fengyu's apprehensive look. He never thought that his big brother would have such a moment. It was truly rare. He really wanted to take a picture of his big brother's conflicted look at this moment for safekeeping. However, he knew that his big brother would definitely not give in. When he thought of his big brother's terrifying means, he gave up on that thought. Can you help me ask? Dong Fengyu was a little uncertain. What should he say to Lung Ruoxue now? He had no idea at all. Just wait for my news. Dong Fenglin said with a smile. After that, he chatted with Dong Fengyu for a while more before leaving. Chapter 2158. Arrangement 2. After he left, he anxiously went to look for Lung Ruoxue and asked for her opinion. After obtaining her consent, he immediately arranged for them to meet to avoid any more trouble. In the guest hall where Lung Ruoxue was staying, Lung Ruoxue, the demon, Uncle Long, and Song, who was napping in Lung Ruoxue's arms, were sitting on the chairs calmly. Opposite them were the two brothers Dong Fengyu and Dong Fenglin. However, the two brothers' expressions were completely different. Dong Fenglin was calm and casual, while Dong Fengyu was a little uneasy. However, he had been in a high position for many years, so no matter how nervous Dong Fengyu was, it would not be easy for others to see. Unfortunately, the people he was facing now were all shrewd people, so how could they not see his little emotions? However, Lung Ruoxue and the others kindly pretended not to know anything. Dong Fengyu did not speak, so they did not speak either. For a moment, the atmosphere was unusually heavy. Dong Fenglin was speechless when he saw his big brother staring at Lung Ruoxue and the others. He could not help but shout in his heart, "Big brother! You should say something. Why are you acting like a big girl?" Dong Fengyu's current behavior made Dong Fenglin both angry and anxious. He had been sending messages to his big brother in his heart for a long time. However, Dong Fengyu acted as if he had not heard anything. He remained seated without moving and sized up Lung Ruoxue and the others. Seeing this, Dong Fenglin was extremely anxious, but he couldn't remind her too obviously. Lung Ruoxue was already laughing in her heart when she saw him acting this way. However, Dong Fengyu was just sitting there, and looking at them without moving. What was he trying to do? Were there flowers on their faces? Otherwise, how could he be so focused? Although she wanted Dong Fengyu to speak, she did not show it on her face at all. Instead, she appeared even calmer. After a long time, Dong Fengyu finally opened his mouth. That. Dong Fengyu stammered for a long time, but he couldn't say a complete sentence. He was really angry and anxious. What was wrong with him? Wasn't it just a woman? Did he have to be so nervous? He was a reverent god after all. What do you want to say, Your Excellency Dong Fengyu? Lung Ruoxue raised her brows slightly and said in a cold tone, "That. I should apologize to Miss Lung first. My subordinates were a little rude to Miss Lung previously. I hope that Miss Lung can be magnanimous and not hold it against them." After thinking for a long time, Dong Fengyu finally mustered his courage and said it. "What if I say that I'm a petty person who likes to fuss over things?" Hearing Dong Fengyu finally finish his sentence, Lung Ruoxue still did not give him any face. As expected, her words immediately rendered Dong Fengyu speechless. He stared at her with his eyes wide open and was speechless. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue was a little disappointed. It seemed like Dong Fengyu, who was once known as the war god, wasn't someone with a glib tongue. However, it was understandable. One didn't need to talk in a battle. "Miss Lung, please don't joke around," Dong Fenglin said helplessly when he saw that the atmosphere had turned cold again. He could tell that Lung Ruoxue was just teasing his big brother. However, it seemed like his big brother was taking it seriously. "I'm not joking, I'm just very petty," Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. "Miss Lung, I'm sorry." Dongfeng, who had been silent, suddenly said, "Your Excellency Dongfeng, you really don't have to apologize to me. Every wrong has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. I'll naturally settle the score with whoever made me unhappy. Besides, I've also said that although you're master's subordinates, you really don't have to be loyal to me. I won't force you," Lung Ruoxue emphasized. "Actually, I am very optimistic about Miss Lung. It's just that many of my subordinates have opposite opinions. I have been through thick and thin with them for many years, so I can't help but assess their thoughts. I hope Miss Lung can forgive me." After hesitating for a while, Dongfeng explained with sincerity, "I understand." Lung Ruoxue nodded. I will discuss it with them again," Dongfeng said. "I'm afraid it's useless to discuss." When Lung Ruoxue heard Dongfeng's words, she was rather happy. After all, this person was the most powerful among all of Master's subordinates. If she could get his approval, the others would not be a problem. However, it seemed that the others were more difficult to deal with, but Dongfeng was the easiest one. Most importantly, they had gone through thick and thin together. Therefore, this kind of relationship was very important to Dongfeng. Otherwise, he would not be in such a difficult position. "Then what does Miss Lung mean?" Dongfeng asked as he looked at Lung Ruoxue. "They don't trust me because they think I'm young and my strength is not enough to convince the public. Since that's the case, I'll defeat them with my strength," Lung Ruoxue said confidently. In her opinion, those people deserved a beating. However, for the sake of his master, if there was a chance to subdue them, he would still think of a way. After all, if his master was still alive, he would probably be willing to see his subordinates find a good home. "Does Miss Lung have any good ideas?" Hearing this, Dongfeng Lin asked immediately. He was the first person to acknowledge Lung Ruoxue. In addition, his big brother had also given in. He naturally hoped that Lung Ruoxue could become their leader and lead them to avenge Master Yu. Furthermore, he deeply felt that no one was more suitable than Lung Ruoxue. This girl's personality was to his liking. "Let's arrange a match," Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. She had already thought about it. "What's a match?" Dongfeng Lin asked, confused. This was the first time he had heard of this term. "We'll each take a side and display our strength. Of course, the challenge is in a group form. The final winner has the right to raise a condition to the losing side. How about it?" Lung Ruoxue asked. "Any condition?" Dongfeng Lin confirmed. "As long as it doesn't violate the rules of heaven and earth, and the other party doesn't have to start a massacre, it's fine," Lung Ruoxue said after some thought. "How is it? If you have any thoughts, you can also tell me. This is just my initial idea," Lung Ruoxue continued. "Since it's a match between the two sides, how many people will each side send?" Dongfeng asked after thinking for a while. "I plan to use 10 games as the base, 8 out of 10 wins," Lung Ruoxue said. Initially, she wanted to win 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 5 rounds. However, she then thought that if they only competed in these few rounds, there would definitely be people in the other party who would not be convinced. Since that was the case, why not compete in a few more rounds? This way they would not be able to say anything. "So many rounds? But I thought there were only 3 of you?" Dongfeng glanced at the people sitting in the room and reminded them. "It doesn't matter. The 3 of us are enough to deal with it," Lung Ruoxue said confidently. However, Dongfeng felt that Lung Ruoxue was being too arrogant. Chapter 2159. Arrangements 3. Furthermore, even though Lung Ruoxue was the one who came up with this idea, it was very important to her. If she could really win the tournament, then it would be logical for her to subdue his unruly subordinates. After all, this world revered the strong. "Have you all forgotten about me? I can also be considered one." At this moment, Songban opened his pitch-black eyes and flashed his sharp claws as he spoke in a slightly displeased manner. The 2 brothers, Dongfeng and Dongfeng Lin, glanced at Song's tiny body and didn't think it had a chance to fight. Besides, everyone knew how strong a rabbit was. What could it do? The two brothers didn't think highly of Song because they hadn't seen his strength. Of course, Dongfangyu had seen it before, but the current Song and the Song back then were completely different, so he didn't expect this rabbit to be the Totoro that had once abused him. If he had known, he would not have dared to underestimate Li Song. However, Song didn't care about their thoughts at all. He placed his chubby little paws on Lung Ruoxia's fair wrist and asked pitifully in a soft voice, "Girl, can I fight?" "Obi-Wan." Its claws were starting to itch. "You? If it's you, do you still need to fight? You can annihilate them all by yourself." Lung Ruoxia glanced at Song, who was pretending to be pitiful, and felt bad for him. However, she did not reject Song directly. Instead, she looked at Dongfangyu and asked, "Can my beastie fight?" "It's possible, but if beastie fights, it can only be a 1v1. Dongfangyu said after some thought. There were only 3 people on the other side. If they were to send out 10 people, it would seem like they were bullying the other side. Hence, he had agreed to Lung Ruoxia's idea of sending out beastie. However, Lung Ruoxia could not possibly be planning to send out this rabbit, right? Dongfangyu was extremely curious. He did not know that Lung Ruoxia had many spirit beasts, but he did not think that this little rabbit was too weak. However, he could only think about it in his heart. He was too embarrassed to say it out loud. After all, he still had to give Lung Ruoxia some face. Hearing Dongfangyu's words, Lung Ruoxia nodded her head in satisfaction and said, "All right, it's decided then. We'll each take 10 people and have a match. Let's set it to 3 days later." Yes. Dongfangyu and Dongfanglin didn't have any objections to this schedule. Then, they discussed the details of the tournament before the two brothers left. After they left, Uncle Long looked at Lung Ruoxia with a face full of curiosity. He could not help but ask, "Shuai, when did you come up with this idea?" "Not long ago, but after seeing Dongfangyu, I finally made the decision." Lung Ruoxia laughed. "Then are you confident?" Uncle Long said worriedly. Dongfangyu and the others were basically experts who had been famous for many years. They had rich combat experience. It would be difficult to defeat them without any suspense. Of course, if Song went up, he would be invincible. However, he did not think that Shuai would let Song go up. Therefore, Song would be disappointed. Uncle Long, among them, Dongfangyu is the most powerful. I think we can handle the rest. As for Dongfangyu, Lung Ruoxia paused. She had not thought of who to send out for the battle, unless Dongfangyu did not want to fight. However, that was unlikely. "Leave Dongfangyu to me," the demon said in a light tone. Hearing this, Uncle Long's face was filled with black lines. All of a sudden, he pitied the other party, especially Dongfangyu. He didn't know how he would feel if he was defeated by a secret mistress in the guise of a divine emperor. He would probably feel defeated. I hope he can withstand this blow. Then leave Dongfanglin to me. Uncle Long took the initiative to ask. Although he wasn't sure if he could defeat Dongfangyu, it wouldn't be a problem to defeat Dongfanglin. After all, Dongfanglin wasn't the best at fighting. "Uncle Long, you've forgotten that he's one of us." Lung Ruoxia reminded him with a faint smile. She believed that Dongfanglin would definitely find a good reason not to fight. That's right. Leave that old man with the surname Lien to me. I've been wanting to compete with him for a long time. Uncle Long said after thinking for a while. All right. Lung Ruoxia nodded in agreement. Just then, a white light flashed before their eyes. Huan Chen, who was dressed in white, suddenly appeared again. Huan Chen smiled faintly and glanced at Sung before turning to Lung Ruoxia. How could little master forget about me when there's a fight? You're also participating. Lung Ruoxia looked at Huan Chen with a slight headache. This fellow really came and went without a trace, a representative of unorganized discipline. If it's possible, of course I want to teach those arrogant guys a lesson. Huan Chen said indifferently. He had been observing the actions of those fellows and was furious in his heart. However, those people had always been occupied by Azure. Therefore, he had never found an opportunity to teach them a lesson. Now that he finally had one, he naturally did not want to let it go. All right then. However, you can only play one round," said Lung Ruoxua after some thought. Huan Chun was a weapon spirit and was very powerful. Although she didn't dare to say that Huan Chun was a match for Azure, she was very clear that if she didn't restrict Huan Chun, he could still defeat all of them. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but sigh. The artifact spirit was much purer than humans, and it didn't have so many thoughts. It would recognize the other party as its master as soon as it felt that they were pleasing to the eye, unlike some self-conceited humans who were so cowardly. In fact, if it weren't for her master and senior brothers, she wouldn't have gone through so much trouble with Dongfang Yu and the others. After all, she hated trouble the most. One game it is. However, can I choose my own people? Huan Chun discussed. You don't have a choice. Dongfang Yu and that Uncle Lien are already taken. Lung Ruoxua smiled faintly. Ai. Among those people, only the two of them are the strongest. The others are just small fries, and they will affect my high fighting spirit. Huan Chun said with a regretful expression. If that's the case, you can also choose not to fight. Lung Ruoxua raised her eyebrows and smiled. No. Even the smallest mosquito had meat. I will definitely fight. Huan Chun emphasized. Girl, I also want to fight. Song said, unwilling to be outdone. Then, he stared at Lung Ruoxua with his pair of watery black diamonds, as if he would cry if Lung Ruoxua did not agree. You can only play one round. Lung Ruoxua said in a serious tone. Yes, yes. Song nodded quickly and buried his head in Lung Ruoxua's arms. Shui, including Senior Song and Huan Chun, we only have 5 spots. Who do you plan on sending out? Uncle Long thought of the candidates and continued to ask. The other 5. The 3 of us will each play one game. Lung Ruoxua hesitated for a moment before speaking. The 3 of us are each playing a game? Do you want to take them down with an 8 o'clock score? Ugh. This was too cruel. Swear they will be shocked. Uncle Long said sympathetically. Hee. That's just my personal opinion. What if we accidentally lose one game? Lung Ruoxua laughed evilly. Of course, this was just her humble way of saying it. She didn't think that she would lose. At this moment, a voice rang out in Lung Ruoxua's mind. Miss, let me play one round too. And you? Hearing In Yu's voice, Lung Ruoxua's thoughts turned and she immediately moved him out of the bracelet. Ever since the Dark Knight clan had entered the bracelet, they had spent most of their time cultivating. The Dark Knight clan had always kept a low profile, so Lung Ruoxua had rarely used them. She had not expected that In Yu would be unwilling to be left out and take the initiative to speak up. This had truly surprised her. Seeing In Yu appear in front of them, the black lines on Uncle Long's forehead deepened. Was this guy also going to join the battle? When he thought of this, his sympathy for Dongfang Yu and the others deepened. Shui Er's side was really full of talents. Although he wasn't too familiar with In Yu, he knew In Yu very well. This fellow's strength was only higher than his. Moreover, In Yu had been cultivating in Shui Er's spatial space all this time. He had probably recovered to his peak strength long ago, or even stronger. Ai. They were all a bunch of awesome people. When he thought of the evildoer, Song Huan Chun, In Yu, and Dongfang Yu, Uncle Long's heart was filled with bitterness. He had thought that he was already quite strong, but compared to these people, he was still not strong enough. Moreover, in front of them, his seniority was the lowest. This fact made the villain in his heart burst into tears. He was so depressed. However, And Yu couldn't empathize with Uncle Long's depressed mood. After he came out, he first called out, Miss. Then he bowed to Tsong and said very politely, And Yu greets Senior Tsong. Yo. It's a little fellow from the Dark Knight race. Hearing In Yu's words, Song Qing's eyelids twitched as she indifferently said, Yes, I am. And Yu was a little speechless. However, in front of Senior Tsong, he was indeed a little guy. The Dark Shadows also has to play a round. In that case, there are only 2 empty rounds left. Lung Ruoxua said as she looked at the demon and Uncle Long. Shui, I'll just play one round. The demon laughed. Me too, Shui. I'll let you perform in the remaining 2 rounds. Well, let them see how bad their taste is, to actually dare to look down on our Shui. This is preposterous. When Uncle Long thought of this, He was so angry that he stomped his feet. Chapter 2160. The Challenge 1. Lung Ruoxua looked at Uncle Long's angry face and quickly consoled him. Uncle Long, why are you angry with them? They don't like me, but I don't like them. It wasn't worth getting angry at them. In addition, we must make them take the initiative to pledge their allegiance. Otherwise, we'll really be losing out. Uncle Long reminded. Uncle Long, don't worry. After this match, they'll definitely learn their lesson. Lung Ruoxua said confidently. The reason why she agreed to let Song and Huan Chen fight was to give them a deep lesson. Just as Lung Ruoxua and the others were arranging their battle tactics, Dongfeng Yu and the others were also having a discussion. In the living room, when Uncle Lian and the others heard Dongfeng Yu's words, they widened their eyes in astonishment and stared at him in disbelief. It was as if he had just said something out of the blue. Why are you guys looking at me? Lung Ruoxua has proposed to hold a competition between both parties. Whoever wants to fight, quickly sign up. The quota is limited, only 10. You guys hurry up. Dongfeng Yu urged and then said, I'm definitely going to fight. Count me in. Uncle Lian also said hurriedly, I want to participate too. Yaoji said, not to be outdone. Yes, there are already 3 people. There are 7 more spots. Whoever still wants to participate, quickly sign up. Dongfeng Yu continued to urge. Mr. Dongfeng Lin, are you not going to sign up? Uncle Lian looked at Dongfeng Lin and asked curiously. I've never been interested in fighting and killing, so I won't be participating in this match. Dongfeng Lin said with a smile. In reality, he wanted to represent Lung Ruoxua's side in the battle. However, it was a pity that their relationship could not be exposed too early. Since Dongfeng Lin didn't want to participate, no one dared to force him. Your Excellency Dongfeng Yu, is it possible for the winning side to make a condition to the losing side? Yaoji confirmed after some thought. Didn't I say that as long as it doesn't go against the rules of heaven and earth, and as long as it doesn't require the other party to go on a killing spree, anything else is fine? Dongfeng Yu repeated. He was obviously getting impatient. Then I'm relieved. After confirming it, Yaoji was a little smug. She was thinking about what kind of conditions she would propose to Lung Ruoxua. This time, she had to teach her a good lesson openly. She had to let that little girl know that experience was very important. However, it was a good thing that Lung Ruoxua did not know what she was thinking. Otherwise, she would definitely be depressed. This was something that had not even been set in stone, so the other party was happy too early. Then people began to sign up one after another. After Dongfeng Yu's screening, the list of participants was finally decided. Out of the 10 participants, 4 were Reverent God-level cultivators while Yaoji was the weakest. Yaoji was also a divine emperor, but she was the weakest among them. However, their lineup was rather powerful. Dongfeng Yu actually started to worry for Lung Ruoxua when he saw the lineup. Their side was very powerful. Among the 4 Reverent God-level experts, other than him and Uncle Long, 2 of the Reverent God-level experts were from Lin Fan's side. The 6 deity emperors were all his subordinates. Not only that, but they also had rich combat experience. Therefore, it would not be easy for Lung Ruoxua to defeat them. It was precisely because he was worried for Lung Ruoxua that he remained silent after confirming the number of participants. At this moment, Yaoji asked curiously, Your Excellency Dongfeng Yu, the competition is 8 out of 10, right? If we don't win 8 matches out of 10, does that mean the match will continue? Then who will fight in the next match? At that time, the candidates for the battle will be chosen from the 10 of us. Dongfeng Yu explained. Then he continued, It's getting late. Everyone have a good rest and recharge your batteries. You must give it your all in the upcoming matches. After saying that, Dongfeng Yu left the living room first. 3 days later, the tournament officially began. Dongfeng Lin had arranged for the match to be held in the best training ground in his underground castle. It wasn't even time for the match yet, but the large training ground was already packed with people. Almost everyone who was at home had come to watch this rare competition. After Lung Ruoxua and the rest entered the martial arts practice, they felt everyone's gaze on them. When they saw that there were only 6 of them, everyone started whispering to each other out of curiosity. Aren't there only 10 spots in the competition? They actually only used 6 of them and couldn't find anyone. How pitiful. Someone whispered. However, no matter how soft his voice was, it still reached Lung Ruoxia's ears. When Lung Ruoxia heard this, black lines appeared on her forehead. She thought to herself, what do these people know? It wasn't that she couldn't find him, it was just that there was no need. However, she would not quibble with these people. She would prove it with facts. When they arrived at the seats that Dongfang Lin had prepared for them, Lung Ruoxia and the rest sat down. They were sitting opposite Dongfang Yu and the rest. As for Dongfang Lin, he was in charge of judging the situation. When the competition had officially started, a tall and strong burly man jumped onto the stage that had been built in the middle of the martial arts practice field. His large eyes swept over Lung Ruoxia, who was still sitting down. The burly man revealed a look of contempt, then he slowly opened his mouth. Du Wei. I'll be fighting in the first round. Who's going to fight me? I'll do it. Song lazily stretched in Lung Ruoxia's arms before speaking indifferently. You? A little rabbit? Ha ha ha. You'd better fatten yourself up and leave it for your master to eat. Du Wei laughed so hard that he almost fell out of the ring when he saw how small Song was. Seeing the burly man laugh, Song Qing closed her eyes and then jumped into the ring. Can we start now? Big Bear. I'll beat you up so badly that even your mother won't be able to recognize you. Azure said with a smile. My name is Dewey, not Big Bear. Du Wei was a little displeased when he heard that the rabbit had changed its name. I didn't say your name was Big Bear. It's just that you look like a bear. Azure said with a smile. Damn it. Don't you try to be glib. Take my move. Du Wei drew his weapon, but before he could gather divine power and pour it into his weapon, he saw a white lightning bolt flash past. Then everyone heard a loud bang, as Du Wei was kicked off the ring by a small rabbit. Moreover, the force of the kick seemed to be a little too strong. Du Wei's back was facing the crowd, and he was half buried in the ground, creating a human-shaped pit on the originally flat ground. Du Wei, on the other hand, lay on the ground for a long time. Seeing this, everyone was dumbfounded and dumbfounded. Fuck. Was this still a rabbit? He actually managed to knock a divine emperor into the ground. He was really too violent. Chapter 2161. The Challenge 2. However, this wasn't the end. Song directly jumped from the stage onto the motionless burly man's body, scratching left and right up and down to attack. As expected, he carried out his plan to beat the burly man until his mother couldn't even see him. A moment later, the poor burly man was already covered in wounds and bleeding. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but draw a cold breath, their impression of Song's violence deepening. After finishing what he wanted to do, Azure jumped back into the ring and looked down at Dongfang Lin. He asked indifferently, Little guy, can I end this round? And Dongfang Lin nodded. Then he ordered his men to carry the burly man away and signaled the start of the second round. In the second round, it was Lung Ruoxia's turn to send her people up first. Lung Ruoxia's team sent out Huan Chen, who was dressed in white and as handsome as a banished immortal. Huan Chen walked up to the ring with elegant steps. His pitch-black eyes swept over Dongfang Yu and the others. Then he slowly said, Which one of you wants to fight me? I'll do it. The person who had jumped up was a young man. However, seeing that Huan Chen only seemed to be a god king, the man did not think much of him. He even said very generously, I'll let you make the first move. Let me make the first move? Don't you regret this? Huan Chen laughed evilly. Then he extended a long and powerful leg and kicked the young man opposite him. Bang! With a loud sound, the young man was kicked off the stage by Huan Chen. Fortunately, he fell into the pit created by the burly man and immediately fainted. The human-shaped pit became even deeper. Fuck. How was this possible? He hadn't even made a move. How could he have fainted? How could they fight? The crowd was secretly sighing in their hearts. The scene was somewhat similar to the previous one. The audience, Dongfang Yu, and the others were all dumbfounded. Even Dongfang Lin could not help but break out in cold sweat. He thought to himself, What are you guys trying to do? At least give the other party a chance to attack. Otherwise, if this continued, wouldn't Big Brother and the others be in for a tragedy? Dongfang Lin was a little worried for his big brother. If they lost too badly, he didn't know if they would be able to take it. However, Huanchen also won this round easily. Next, it was Dongfang Yu's turn. This time, it was Yaoji from their side. The moment Yaoji stepped onto the stage, she provoked Lung Ruoxue. Lung Ruoxue, do you dare to have a fight with me? What's there to be afraid of? Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue smiled and walked up the stage calmly. At that moment, the two of them were only a few meters apart. Yaoji looked at the dazzlingly beautiful Lung Ruoxue, whose beauty could cause the downfall of a city, and the flames of jealousy in her heart burned uncontrollably. She immediately launched her attack. A giant green eagle was released from her hands. This eagle was condensed by her divine power. The eagle first circled the sky a few times before it let out a long cry. Following that, it swooped down and attacked Lung Ruoxue's face. Lung Ruoxue didn't even try to dodge. She immediately used her divine power to form a dragon and a phoenix. The dragon and phoenix were fiery red in color and exuded a scorching heat. In an instant, the dragon and phoenix wrapped themselves around the giant eagle. The three beasts were entangled. Yaoji was furious when she saw the eagle she had conjured being pincered by two beasts that were also conjured from godly energy. She then shouted at Lung Ruoxue. Humph! You're too despicable. What kind of skill is it to fight 2 against 1? 2 against 1? If you think you're losing out, you can make another one. Lung Ruoxue reminded her with a smile. However, her words only made Yaoji even angrier. Damn it! Didn't she want to condense another one to fight against Lung Ruoxue's too? However, she had the will but not the strength. It was already very difficult for her to support such a beastie, so she really could not make another one. When she saw that Lung Ruoxue did not feel any discomfort when she condensed the two beasts, she was even more envious and jealous. The match went on very quickly. The giant eagle that Yaoji had conjured quickly dispersed under the attacks of the dragon and phoenix. However, Yaoji was unwilling to give up and wanted to continue fighting Lung Ruoxue. However, Lung Ruoxue did not want to waste any more time on her. After beating Yaoji up cleanly, Lung Ruoxue also lifted her leg and kicked Yaoji off the stage. However, she did not use too much strength. At least Yaoji did not end up in a miserable state like the other two. However, she had lost to Lung Ruoxue, whom she had always looked down on, so quickly. This fact caused her heart to be in a state of shock. Standing below the ring, Yaoji was burning with anger. His face was dark. She didn't believe that she couldn't do anything to a little girl. However, before she could do anything, the judge announced the end of the competition between the two of them. Yaoji was furious when she heard this. Damn it. She hadn't had the chance to teach Lung Ruoxue a lesson yet, so how could she lose the competition so easily? Yaoji felt extremely indignant. However, the judge had already said that their match was over. Hence, she could only stay still for now. However, once she had the chance, she would definitely not let Lung Ruoxue off. She would teach her a lesson. Yaoji pondered. As for Lung Ruoxue, she knew what Yaoji was thinking just by looking at her expression. As such, she couldn't be bothered with her. The next to go up was Uncle Long. It just so happened that Dongfang Yu's representative was Uncle Lian. After the two of them greeted each other in the ring, they began to size each other up. The two old men looked at each other affectionately for a long time. Finally, Uncle Lian couldn't take it anymore and said, "Let's have a good contest. I can't ask for more." Uncle Long nodded in agreement. Then he reminded, "Your side has already lost 3 matches. I know. I don't need you to remind me." Hearing Uncle Long's words, Uncle Lian's face darkened. Seeing this, Uncle Long laughed heartily and sighed. People don't even listen to the truth these days." His face was filled with grievance. Who knew that when Uncle Lian saw Uncle Long's detestable look, he would be even angrier? Then, the furious Uncle Lian made his move. Meanwhile, Uncle Lian was also calmly dealing with the situation. Even after hundreds of exchanges, it was still difficult to determine the victor. However, Uncle Lian was already panting from exhaustion. Although Uncle Long was also struggling, his face still had a relaxed expression. Moreover, everyone watched as he took out a white jade bottle and poured a few pills into his mouth. Immediately, Uncle Long was full of energy again. Chapter 2162. The Challenge 3U. Seeing Uncle Long's actions, Uncle Lien became even angrier. He pointed at Uncle Long and his body trembled with anger. "What's wrong?" Uncle Long glanced at Uncle Lien and asked indifferently, "How can you eat a pill?" Uncle Lien was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Was this considered cheating? "Can't I eat it?" Uncle Long blinked innocently and looked at Uncle Lien in confusion. Then he turned to look at Dongfeng Lin. His eyes were red as if he was asking him, "Is there a rule in the tournament that you can't eat pills?" His reaction made Dongfeng Lin break out in a cold sweat. However, it seemed that more and more people were looking at him. Hence, he could not play dumb even if he wanted to. That consuming medicinal pills is not against the rules of the competition. After clearing his throat, Dongfeng Lin said. Then he turned his gaze away from the two people on the stage. However, he kept his eyes on the two people's match. His words made Uncle Lien so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, he thought about it carefully. There was indeed no rule in any competition that forbade participants from eating medicinal pills. With this knowledge, Uncle Lien finally forced himself to calm down. Then he also ate a pill to replenish the divine power he had used up. However, his heart ached. They had been locked up for too long, and they had almost no good things on them. This pill was something that he had saved up with great difficulty. Unfortunately, it had been used now, and it was used in such an ordinary competition. No matter how he thought about it, he really felt that he had suffered a great loss. Wait a minute. How did the other party have so many pills? If he didn't see wrongly, the fellow opposite him seemed to have eaten a handful of medicinal pills. Wasn't this even more wasteful? Why do you have so many pills? When he thought of this question, Uncle Lien asked without any hesitation. Do you want to know? I'll tell you if you surrender. Uncle Long laughed evilly. Upon hearing this, Uncle Lien's anger immediately burned, and he pounced straight at Uncle Long. Uncle Long dodged hurriedly, then he kept shouting, "You're too unparticular. How can you fight just like that? Nonsense. This is a competition, you know?" Uncle Lien scoffed at Uncle Long's words, and became even more ruthless. Uncle Long smiled happily. His efforts were not in vain. The old man was even more serious. Since his opponent was serious, Uncle Long naturally didn't want to lose to him. Then he immediately began to counterattack fiercely. In an instant, two wispy figures shuttled back and forth in front of everyone's eyes as fast as lightning. They pounced left and dodged right, dazzling everyone's eyes and making them unable to catch their eyes. Slowly, the two of them reached a stalemate. Uncle Long was eating pills to replenish his divine power as he fought. With the support of these pills, his divine power was basically inexhaustible. Uncle Lien, on the other hand, did not have such a grand plan. Gradually, he began to show signs of defeat. With a leap, the exhausted Uncle Lien jumped out of the battle circle and admitted defeat. Damn it, there was no way they could fight this battle. The other party ate medicinal pills as if they were snacks, but he was embarrassingly short of money. Comparing the two, Uncle Lien felt wronged and wanted to find a hole to hide in. Ooh, how could he bully people like this? Compared to the other party, he was like a beggar. 4-0. At this moment, Dongfeng Lin deliberately reminded them. Upon hearing this, Uncle Lien's anger instantly rose. Uncle Long smiled faintly and said, "Didn't you want to know where I got these pills? Let me tell you. The pills I just ate were all refined by little Shui. Really?" When Uncle Lien heard this, he immediately perked up and looked at Lung Ruoxue. However, Lung Ruoxue ignored him and turned her head to the other side. Seeing this, he was deeply depressed. It seemed that they had offended this little girl quite badly. They didn't even want to look at them. Of course it's true. After Uncle Long finished speaking, he jumped off the ring. Uncle Lien resentfully walked down the stage. Next, a middle-aged man came up from their side. The middle-aged man looked to be in his 40s, and was a reverent god-level cultivator. However, he did not observe Lung Ruoxue and the others first. Instead, he glanced at Dongfeng Lin, who was in charge of judging. The two of them exchanged glances in midair before the middle-aged man turned his attention to Lung Ruoxue and the others. It went without saying that this middle-aged man was Dongfeng Lin's man. At this moment, only Yu and the demon from Lung Ruoxue's side had yet to fight. The demon's target was naturally Dongfeng Yu, so it was Yu who went up this time. Both of them were reverent god-level cultivators, so they immediately attracted everyone's attention as soon as the battle began. The two of them didn't disappoint, and after hundreds of exchanges, Yu feigned a narrow victory by a single move. Lung Ruoxue's team won this round again. Following that, Dongfeng Lin announced a temporary ceasefire, and the other 5 matches would continue in the afternoon. After the temporary truce, Lung Ruoxue and the rest returned to their own courtyard while Dongfeng Yu and the rest gathered in the living room to discuss the morning's competition. Dongfeng Yu and the others were rather disappointed with the few matches in the morning, while those who had fought were even more depressed, especially Du Wei and the young man who had been kicked off the ring without even making a move. They were simply too ashamed to show their faces. "Mr. Dongfeng Yu, we must win the first 3 games in the afternoon. Only then will we have a chance to win." Yaoji couldn't help reminding him. "I know." Dongfeng Yu nodded his head indifferently. He really did not want to say anything that would hurt them. However, he was not optimistic about the competition in the afternoon. Although he was not sure how Lung Ruoxue and the others' competition was arranged, their chances of winning were already very slim. After an entire morning of observation, he had a rough understanding of Lung Ruoxue and the others' abilities. Hence, he only hoped that they would not lose too badly, and did not have any other requests. When he thought of this, he glanced at the calm Dongfeng Lin. When he saw Dongfeng Lin's calm and composed appearance, he had to admit that he was jealous. How could Lin Fan be so relaxed? In fact, he didn't take this match very seriously. However, if he lost too badly, he would also feel that he would lose face. Although Dongfeng Lin knew what Dongfeng Yu was thinking, he still intended to stay out of this world and not get involved in their affairs. The short rest time passed quickly. When Lung Ruoxue and the rest stepped into the martial arts practice field once again in high spirits, they suddenly realized that there were even more people in the audience than in the morning. Furthermore, as there were no seats, many people had chosen to stand in the aisle and stretch their necks to stare at the seats of both parties. After seeing them enter the stadium, the audience seemed to be even more excited. They were cheering and jumping for joy. There were even a few children who were bold enough to run in front of Lung Ruoxue and the others. They stared at them with their eyes wide open as if they were looking at their idols. Then they ran away shyly. When Lung Ruoxue and the rest saw this, they could only smile helplessly before taking their own seats. Not long after he sat down, Dongfeng Yu and the others also arrived. Lung Ruoxue, who clearly felt an unfriendly gaze, lifted her beautiful eyes and glanced at the other party's seat. Then she immediately shifted her gaze away. As a result, the gaze that followed her like a shadow was somewhat angry. However, Lung Ruoxue couldn't care less about whether the other party was angry or not. Seeing that the time for the competition was up, she immediately jumped onto the stage. Dongfeng Yu and the others frowned when they saw that Lung Ruoxue was going to fight in the first match of the afternoon. Yaoji wanted to rush up immediately, but she was stopped by Dongfeng Yu. "Lianjia, you go up and fight Lung Ruoxue." Dongfeng Yu instructed and shot Yaoji a warning glance. "Yes." When Lianjia heard this, he immediately jumped onto the stage like a fish leaping over the dragon gate. Lianjia was one of the 4 reverent god-level experts on Dongfeng Yu's side. Even though it was unfair to let Lianjia fight Lung Ruoxue, they had no choice. They could not lose too badly. After Lianjia went up to the ring, he politely bowed to Lung Ruoxue. Then he said in a gentlemanly manner, "Miss Lung, please make the first move. If that's the case, then I won't be polite." With that, Lung Ruoxue drew her sword. Immediately after, the crowd saw thousands of fiery red meteor sword rain swarming towards Lianjia from all directions. Instantly, everyone's hearts were in their throats. This rain of swords was too terrifying. They were densely packed with burning flames. If they accidentally touched them, they would definitely be injured. Even though they were a distance away from the ring, they could still feel the burning aura of the Rain of Swords. And Lianjia, who was on the ring, felt this burning sensation even more clearly. Lianjia wiped the cold sweat from his forehead without batting an eyelid. He was extremely nervous, but he still quickly set up a water curtain in front of himself. He thought that his water curtain could withstand the attack of the sword rain, but he never dreamed that his water curtain would be so vulnerable in the face of the meteor sword rain. The sword rain directly passed through the water curtain and hit his body. Instantly he felt a burning pain on his body. The pain went deep into his bone marrow and heart-wrenching. It was as if a sea of fire had been ignited inside his body, and the heat from the inside out was about to roast him. It was hot. It was so hot. Lianjia couldn't take it anymore and pulled open his clothes. However, this action still couldn't relieve the heat on his body. In an instant, his face had already turned red, and his skin was also shimmering with a faint red. Logically speaking, a reverent god's body was extremely strong. Ordinary flames would not be able to cause any harm to a reverent god-level expert. However, this flame was unbearable, as if he was in a sea of fire. The temperature in his body was rising again and again. It was so hot. Lianjia felt extremely uncomfortable. If there was a 1,000-year-old frozen lake in front of him, he would definitely jump in to lower his temperature. However, this scorching heat was too torturous. Even with his strong willpower, he could not bear it. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.